Thank you. Good evening. Call to order Beaumont City Council regular council meeting for Tuesday, August 26, 2025 here at 5 p.m. Hope you all had a very good, enjoyable summer. And Nathan's coming in right now. That's perfect. So a couple of housekeeping items before we begin. Catherine McCook, councillor, is ill this evening. She won't be joining us. And Councillor Barnhart is actually on the road. She's zooming in, but her internet connection is sporadic. So I'll be trying to keep in touch with her between texting and on Teams as she is in and out of communication with us. So we'll do the best we can to accommodate her being on the road. So, being a land acknowledgement, the City of Beaumont respects the histories, languages, and the cultures of all First Peoples of this land, whether it be a First Nation, Métis, and Inuit descent, and appreciates that their presence continues to enrich vibrant communities across the land. As we gather here in Treaty 6 territory, in the homeland of the Métis Nation, we acknowledge that we're all treaty people and have ongoing responsibilities to protect and honor the treaty, inherent rights of the people, and the land. Next on our agenda is proclamations, and we have 5 this evening, but we're doing something a little different tonight. So before I read today's proclamations, I want to mention a small change we made this fall. With the municipal election coming up and a limited number of council meetings before Election Day, I'll be reading the dates and names of the days of significance rather than the full text of each proclamation. That said, the City of Beaumont remains fully committed to recognizing and supporting the valuable contributions of each organization and initiative. The full text of every proclamation will be posted on the city's website during the designated time, so the important work these organizations are doing in our community continues to be highlighted and recognized. With that, I hereby proclaim the following. September 10th, 2025, World Suicide Prevention Day. September 22nd to 26th, 2025, Life Sciences Week. September 24th to 27th, 2025, Alberta Development Officers Week. September 30th, 2025, National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. And September 30th, 2025, Orange Shirt Day. On behalf of Council, thank you for everyone who gives meaning to these important days of significance in our community. Thank you. Next, Madam Clerk, is the adoption of the agenda. Would you please put the agenda on the screen? Member of Council willing to move the adoption of, Madam Clerk, any changes to our agenda this evening? There you go.
No, Mayor, there's no changes to the agenda.
Thank you. Member of Council.
I move that the August 26, 2025 Council agenda be adopted as presented.
Thank you. Discussion on the motion? Seeing none, would you please initiate the voting process for the agenda? Councillor Barnhart, are you with us at this point? I'm assuming she's not. I need one more vote here. Councillor Moncalfe-Swain, please. Thank you. Thank you. Council, that carries unanimously. 5-0 in favor of adoption of the agenda. Madam Clerk, any open forum guests this evening? I'm not aware of any.
No, Mayor, there's no open forum registrations.
Thank you. Member of Council, if anybody wishes to take anything off the consent agenda, Councilman.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to remove item 8.2, please.
Okay, that's additional dwelling unit report.
That's correct.
Thank you. Any further changes to the consent agenda from members of Council? Seeing none. Councilman Newkirk, would you please move the motion for the amended consent agenda, please?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I'll move that the Council consent to approve the following agenda items without debate. Item 5.1, regular Council meeting minutes, July 8, 2025. Item 8.5, property tax exemption requests. Item 9.1, bylaw 1082-25, natural gas distribution system franchise agreement bylaw, second and third reading. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Discussion on the motion? Seeing none, please initiate the voting process. Councillor Barnhart, are you by any chance with us at this point? I don't think so. Yeah, thank you. The vote carries unanimously, 5-0 in favor of the amended consent agenda. Thank you, Council. Next on our agenda is item 6.1, bylaw 1062-24, 2025 fees and charges bylaw, builder request to waive fee. Ms. Raymond, I believe you're presenting this topic. Let me find your microphone for you there.
Good evening, Your Worship, and the item before you is one which involves administration's levy of a fee under the Fees and Charges Bylaw 1062-25 in relation to occupying a building or space prior to passing a final building inspection. On July 16, 2025, Safety Codes Officer for the City of Beaumont conducted an inspection at 3612 Triumph Boulevard for a residential dwelling that was under construction. At that inspection, the SCO observed staging furniture in the home and determined that the building was being occupied, which is not in compliance with provincial codes and legislation. Occupancy is defined in the building code as the use or intended use of a building or part thereof for the shelter or support of person, animals, or property. The city has a duty to ensure public safety and a responsibility to take all reasonable steps to ensure compliance with permits. Until a final inspection has been passed and the Safety Codes Officer grants occupancy and a permit service report is issued, which states that the work is complete in accordance with the permit, that it is safe for the intended use, and it's compliant with the Alberta Building Code, you cannot have occupancy. This builder received a warning for the same offense at the adjacent property. They also received other offenses, same offense at other properties as well. They were aware that a show home permit and occupancy were required in order to stage the house and show it. The city's inspection report clearly shows or outlines that occupancy of a building prior to passing a final inspection or before acceptance of all final documentation may result in a fee of $812 per day plus GST. Not only did the builder occupy the property prior to receiving final occupancy, at the inspection that was conducted, multiple building code deficiencies were noted and another inspection is still required prior to occupancy being granted, so the house is not ready. Accordingly, the city levied a fee of $38,976 for occupying the property from May 29th to July 16th. I'd like to note that an error in calculation was made, and they should have been invoiced for 48 days plus GST, and they were only invoiced for 45. Administration requests that council uphold the total fee levied of $38,976 for occupying a space at the subject property. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Raymond. Any members of council, any questions for Ms. Raymond? The builder is in attendance, which is to speak to council once we had any questions for Ms. Raymond from council. Seeing no questions? You have a question, Nathan? Sorry, Councilman Telebus, you have a question? You have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a quick question, Ms. Raymond, just in regards to the MLS listing that is noted in, I guess, the documents that were provided. Just curious if we confirmed with, I guess, the Edmonton Real Estate Board or MLS to see if there were any changes in uploads for photos.
Ms. Raymond.
Councillor Natalenbos, I'm not aware if that was completed, sorry.
Okay, perfect, thank you. And then just in terms of documentation, do we know when this MLS listing was captured?
Thank you through the mayor to Councillor Natalenbos. That is that May 29th date is what was found. So after the inspection, the Safety Codes Officer returned to the office, conducted a search online. This is what was found. We didn't get into too much depth about how long, if that had been the time. So that was the time that was accounted for.
So just to confirm, the MLS was pulled on July 16th then and not May?
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Penrod, you have a question? You have the floor.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. A question for Ms. Dargis in LLS. What is the builder's legal recourse if we uphold the full fine today as is administration's recommendation?
Oh, Ms. Dargy, sorry.
Thank you. To Councillor Penrod, that would be the final decision.
So there'd be no legal exposure to the city? There'd be no other avenue for the builder to pursue?
Through to Councillor Penrod, someone can always file a civil claim. Whether that is actually a valid claim, that's for the courts to decide.
Yeah, okay, that's kind of where I was going, just trying to get a sense of our exposure in that front. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councilman Telebus, you have a follow-up?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Just a last question here. in the report, it noted obviously that the adjacent property had similar violations, but I believe you had mentioned that there's also other properties that had additional violations. Are you able to share, I guess, with the group here, if any consequences came from that, or were they simply warnings for the other properties, and also how many other properties were in violation?
Ms. Raymond?
Thank you. I am aware of at least probably 3 separate incidents because they've approached the different safety codes officers with the same type of infraction that's been noted. They have received warnings. I can tell you that I've got at least 1 property report in front of me where we noticed occupancy, and we did warn them on it on a separate property, including that fine. So I don't have that exact documentation. We don't typically keep track of how many warnings we issue. But there was conversation between our safety codes team lead and owners and representatives of this company about this type of issue previously.
Thank you, Councillor. That concludes your question. Thank you. So for the question, members of council, Councillor Barnard, are you with us at this point? Okay. If you haven't heard from her, I'm watching my text too, but I don't want to miss her in case she's available. Okay, see no further questions from members of council. I believe the gentleman, the builder, is in his attendance. If you wish to speak to council, now is your time, please. Would you please join us at the table? When you get there, please state your name and company name if you could, and begin your presentation when you're ready. Thank you.
So I'm actually not the builder. I'm the realtor for the builder.
Okay.
My name is Ray Alweni. I'm a realtor with Roy LePage. And the reason why I'm here is because that furniture belonged to me, and I was the one who was responsible for staging the property. I get 5 minutes. Is that yeah? Okay. So no problem. Yep, no problem. Good evening, council members. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. Again, my name is Ray Alweni, and I'm a realtor with Roy LePage. I've been a realtor for 18 years now, working in Edmonton and surrounding areas, including areas like Beaumont, Fort Saskatchewan, Leduc, Spruce Grove. I'm here to provide some clarification regarding this fine issued to us for having furniture in a property prior to obtaining the occupancy permit. And obviously the address in question is 3612 Tryon Boulevard. First, I want to emphasize that we respect the city's permitting process, rules, regulations, and always aim to fully comply. The issue here is not whether the furniture was present or not, but for how long. The fine is based on the assumption that the furniture had been in place for 48 days, and we've made the assumption and the conclusion that 48 days was obtained because they pulled the listing period, and that's how long the property was listed for at that particular time. As part of our regular process, we often list properties before completion and update photos once they're finished. On June 9th, 2025, we brought in furniture solely for photography purposes. That furniture was then removed 3 days after, on June 12th. Once the final inspection was scheduled, and the builder notified me that he had called occupancy for his occupancy final inspection, we try to be proactive to try to get the furniture in place and just time it out as soon as occupancy was granted. The furniture was brought back to the home to stage. The occupancy permit was not issued yet. However, the inspector did not approve the occupancy inspection at that time and instructed us to remove the furniture. We complied immediately, and the removal was completed on July 17th. It was at that time we were notified that a fine would be issued for the entire duration of the listing, which at that point was 48 days. Whenever we move furniture in and out of a property, we hire a company to conduct the move for us, who later invoices us for payment. In our email that we provided last week, we sent over 2 invoices that were paid for the 2 move-ins and the 2 move-outs. The fine assumes that the furniture was continuously in the home for 48 days. In reality, it was only present twice for short, specific periods, one of which was just 3 days for photography and the other ending the same day. We followed directions promptly and in good faith. The basis for the fine doesn't necessarily accurately represent the facts. In conclusion, our goal has always been compliance. The evidence we've provided supports that we acted responsibly and in line with the city's instructions. We respectfully ask the council that council reconsider this fine in light of the actual timeline and documented proof. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you for the presentation. At this time, open up the floor to members of council for any questions of our presenter. Councilman Newkirk, followed by Councilor Penrod. Steve, you have the floor. Hang on. Now you do.
Yeah, thank you for the presenter for being here tonight and presenting what you did. I guess my question is, why wasn't this sorted out with city administration? Why are we here?
From my understanding, once that final inspection was booked, the inspector went in. I think there were some infractions that still needed to be taken care of, but once they figured out the furniture was in there as well, because I see it, they didn't grant occupancy and just immediately issued the fine. And so this was the only recourse that we understood that we can take at that time. So I actually, sorry, to answer your question even further, is I actually personally called the inspector myself to try to talk to her and just see what, you know, what we can do. And because we didn't really understand the severity of it. We definitely weren't trying to break any rules, but she just didn't want to have that conversation.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Penrod, followed by Councilman Talabas. Phil, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor Daniluk, and thank you, Mr. Elwani, for being here today. It's crucial that we're able to put our questions to you. You're appealing to us, so we need to make an informed decision here. So let me just start by saying you were not aware, by the sounds of it, that having the staging furniture in the house is in itself a violation?
At the time, I did not.
So that seems to run counter to what we're hearing from administration's report, that other previous warnings had been made for this procedure. So is this the only, we've also heard about other residences, other addresses. Is this the only one that you've been involved with, or have you been involved with those other?
Well, to be quite honest with you, I was involved. Anytime I list any of these properties for this particular builder, I furnish the house as just value add that I provide for my services. But this was the first time that it became this serious. So typically what we do is, once we know that the builder is called in for his occupancy permit, we'll schedule our staging furniture to get moved. We try to time it out to be that same day or the day after, just assuming that it's gonna pass and that we just don't lose any days. Just because the market, especially in Beaumont, there's a ton of inventory, it's highly competitive, and we're trying to sell houses as fast as possible.
Yeah, I can appreciate that, and we're living in a housing crisis where people are looking for those houses as
Right.
fast as possible, so I can appreciate that. The company that you've issued the receipts from or made us aware of, do they operate under a name? I just have a numbered company here in front of me.
Not that I know of,
Okay, and is that a company you work with regularly?
regularly.
They're a busy, reputable company?
I'm not sure.
You work with them regularly?
Regularly. I'm sure they're busy.
Okay. The reason I'm curious is the two receipts that you've given us are about 27 business days apart, and it looks like there's only been 20 bits of businesses that have been done in that time. So
Yeah.
my concern with these receipts, if I'm trying to make a judgment on an appeal here, they're not overly official. I can go to Staples tomorrow and buy this receipt book and write out receipts to say whatever I want them to say.
That's fair.
And so that's something I have to take into consideration here. So I'll yield at that point, Mayor, and see if anyone else has questions.
Thank you, Councilor. Appreciate that. Councilman Talabas. Nathan, you have the floor, followed by Councilor Monkoff-Swain.
Perfect, thank you, Mayor. Very similar question to what I asked administration. I'm assuming that you would be the real estate agent that would have uploaded the photos?
Correct.
Any chance that you have brought, I guess, any documentation to support the dates of upload for those photos?
I do not. I wouldn't even know how to pull that. So like typically when this house was first listed, it wasn't finished on the inside. There wouldn't have been any photos to upload from the inside. So when we're listing houses that are under construction or nearing the end of construction, what we're typically doing is we're uploading exterior photos, because that's all we can really show and present. There's no, I just wouldn't know how to even pull when those photos were loaded or not. But so like, typically during the duration of a new home, when sort of listing it prior to its full completion, there are times we're uploading photos 2-3 different times. If it's in the winter and it's just stick framed, we'll take a picture, put it up. Once the vinyl siding is done, we'll reload a picture. Once the interior is done, then we'll reload photos again. So it can happen 2-3 times during the duration of that listing period. But I don't have anything with me to show you when the photos were loaded. But there was a photo loaded on day one, and at that time, it would have just been an exterior photo.
Okay, thank you. Can you confirm at which point the new photo was uploaded with all the furniture?
So so it was in June, I got my furniture in there, and so the purpose of this was just to take furniture in there, take photos, take furniture out, for 2 reasons. One, we didn't have occupancy yet, and 2, I didn't want the furniture in there when trades guys were still going in and out, because it just ends up trashing the furniture. So it was in there for 3 days, and then once we were notified that the final inspection was called, we were trying to be proactive to get the furniture in place so that once occupancy permit was granted, the place was fully furnished and ready to show.
Okay, perfect, thank you. I can appreciate everything you're sharing. I do have a question, and it kind of relates to Councillor Penrod's question, but can you confirm that you were the listing agent on the other properties that received warnings?
Don't know the addresses, so I can't answer that.
Administration or Ms. Raymond, at least for the adjacent property, are you able to confirm that address?
The adjacent property, I was the listing agent.
Okay.
3614 would have been next door. I was the listing agent on that.
Perfect. So my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, is administration or at least safety codes officer attempted, at least on that adjacent property, to be lenient and provide warning. And it sounds like that wasn't complied with, and this would be the second property now where we're not complying with these requirements. So just curious, you mentioned you didn't understand the severity. It is my understanding that the warnings were provided as well as the fine that's associated with it. So just looking for a little clarity around that.
Sure. I mean, I shouldn't have said that I didn't understand the severity. I think that would undermine bylaws and the procedures in place. I'm not disputing the fact that the furniture was in there. It's just it wasn't in there for 48 days. $812 at 48 days is just under $40,000. These builders don't even make that much money off that house. It's fair to say, sure, a fine is justified. I just don't think it's justified for the length of time that was stated.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor McGough-Swain, Sam, you have the floor now.
Thank you. Appreciate the position you're in here, sir. I was going to ask a question which you kind of just answered yourself about. It doesn't sound like you're disputing the fine itself, given the fact that it was occupied. What I think I'm hearing you say is the severity, the 48 days, that is what your issue is with.
Totally.
Okay, but based on, again, Councillor Penrod spoke about the receipts, I won't go into that, but based on your thought process, what I heard you say is kind of 3 days, and then for the second time, another 3 days. Do you have an assessment on what you thought would be a fairer fine levied based on the fact that you'd gone against the bylaw here?
Yeah, so before I answer that, the one thing I'd like to point out is the first 3 days in June, there was no warning issued for that. I'm actually making council aware of those dates. Nobody knew about those specific dates. I'm telling you that, hey, we actually brought these in for these 3 days. And I did that because that's likely when the photos were uploaded. If I was able to bring documentation to show that that's when they were loaded, then it probably helped my case. But in regards to your question, yeah, the furniture was in there. If I calculate correctly, I think it's 5 days or 6 days. There was definitely a breach. Is a fine justified? I suppose, right? That's the rule. So, yeah, really the whole point here is, sure, there's a fine that should be issued. It's just 48 days is not accurate.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thanks for the additional background. I think getting the clarity here, when you read a report, you get a certain perspective, and then
Of course.
obviously hearing it, the explanation or the background here. Maybe just a question back to administration. It doesn't sound like, I was going to go down the route of getting a better definition around occupying, but it doesn't look like we need to get into that. We've clearly established that. Is this, and planning may be a bit hard to answer, so the individual in front of us is a pretty common occurrence. I'm not familiar with this. Do we think this is a common occurrence in Beaumont where people come in and stage it for photos prior to occupancy? How do we, have we experienced this before?
Ms. Raymond?
Thank you. Through the mayor to Councillor Munkoff-Swain. Yes, it is something that we notice. It isn't something that we're going to go pick up on because we're not looking at every MLS listing that gets posted. We only go there when we're doing those inspections upon request. But we have been noticing that. And we do communicate with the permit holder. And so in this instance, the permit holder has been warned on multiple occasions, right down to the owner, to the team lead, talking about this very specific issue. A show home, if you want to stage it, it's fine. But it does require occupancy to be granted. Otherwise, we're in a construction site.
Yep.
Now we're in so once they get occupancy, if they want to stage it, that's not a problem. They have a show home permit.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I think everyone can recognize the need for the occupancy permit from a safety perspective. You've identified that. I don't think that the gentleman in front of us is challenging that. Maybe just a question back for administration then. You guys have chose 48 days, right, based on that, and it sounded like you did the math on 45. The individual in front of us is sharing some proactive information that it was actually, not just the time when we went in, but some time beforehand. Just curious on your thoughts on, like, if this discussion happened before, again, to Councillor Van Nieuwkerk's question earlier about why it's in front of us. The question for administration is, you chose 45/48 days when it sounded like here, and based on the information I have in front of me, it was more like 5 or 6. Or could you just comment on why you think 45/48 is more reasonable than 5 days, please?
Ms. Raymond?
Sure, I'll try to capture some of that sentiment there. As mentioned, multiple warnings. We're not tracking those. We're not issuing an infraction at every time that we could or should. Most of the time, our approach is education to get to compliance. We want to have people successfully be able to complete their houses and their projects. With this one here, this was the opinion of the authority having jurisdiction. This was their interpretation that this house was occupied. As mentioned, we're not reviewing to make sure that information was not provided to us. And this was not the first time. So this is a business. We should be finalizing our permits as they are clearly outlaid. It is a contravention of the Alberta Building Code and the Safety Codes Act to do this. It's clearly in every documentation we ever send. So in the opinion, I think, of the safety codes officer, this was the justified one, without getting into provide me that proof on that nitty-gritty detail on exactly here and there, because we can't confirm any of that either. So this was the best confirmation that we could make, and this was the determination that they made when they issued that fine.
Yeah, thank you. And again, I don't think anyone's debating the infraction here. It's just the timing that I think people are getting, I think are honing in on. So thank you for the clarification there. And I'll leave my questions there. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor. I appreciate that. Before I go to round 2, I have one quick question. So you are speaking for the builder. I do appreciate your being here.
Yeah.
Reports suggest that the first occurrence had resulted in no fines, but numerous warnings to not do that. The builder was obviously made aware that to have staging, it must have the show home permit, and they didn't do that.
That's
so.
right.
Can you explain why the builder didn't get the show home permit
So I
after
can't-
being notified that would be required in the future?
That's fair. So I can't speak to how long that furniture was in those previous infractions. It could have been one of those situations where I got the furniture in the property right before occupancy permit was issued. So it could have been a matter of days or the same day We're speculating, making assumptions that these properties were staged for a lengthy period of time before occupancy was granted. I mean, I'm sure council knows that during the construction process, an inspector is in the property multiple times throughout the entire build. So it would have been noted numerous times, maybe 3 or 4 different times. They probably would have been worn 3 or 4 different times during the entire build. But practically speaking, it makes no sense for us to get furniture in there when the property's under construction anyways. You would never have furniture in a property when trades are still going in and plumbers and HVAC and electricians are still working. It just doesn't make any sense. So anytime there was ever a warning, I can't really speak to that, but if there ever was a warning, I can make the assumption that the furniture was in there for a short period of time before occupancy was granted. Like, the biggest issue here that I think the most unfair situation that we're having here is we're talking about the days. We're not disputing the fact that there was an infraction. There's no question about it, and we apologize for that, and I can guarantee you that'll never happen again. The concerning part here is some of these properties, when we list them during construction. Sometimes the days on market is 200 days. If it's not sold during winter, you lose. You can rack up 150, 200 days, no problem. Well, in this particular case, if that was the case, it was on the market for 200 days, at $800, you could just bankrupt the builder at a $160,000 fine. It was just, that's really the whole point of us coming and talking today.
Thank you. We'll go to 3 more questions, then we're going to thank our presenter, and then we'll move on with the motion and going from there. So, pardon me, Councilman Telebus, followed by Councilman Newkirk, followed by Councilor Penrod, and then we'll move on. Councilman Telebus, you have the floor.
Perfect. Thanks, Mayor. Just a quick question. You had mentioned that it's your own service you provide. Just curious, the furniture, is this stored in show homes or locally or your place or?
Yes. So I have 4 sets of furniture. So if you called me to sell your house today and you had a basement that was empty and I thought that it would present better to stage it, I'd provide that service and I'd bring that furniture to you. So typically we're moving furniture from one listing to another. If we don't have any listings at that particular time, we're just storing it in a warehouse.
Okay, perfect. And then you also had mentioned, just going back to the receipt, that traditionally you're invoiced at a later time. I see that the invoice date matches the actual date for the move out. So June 12th, you received the invoice and the move out was June 12th. Just looking for clarity there because you had mentioned it happens at a later time.
I must have misworded my communications there. Sometimes I'm getting the invoice the minute the move is done, and sometimes I'm getting it a few days later.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilman Newkirk, followed by Councilor Penrod. Steve, you have the floor.
Yeah, nothing further. No, Mayor, my questions have been on.
Oh, okay, thank you, Steve. Councilor Penrod. Philip, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor Daniluk. Mr. Alwani, again, appreciate you being here and answering the questions, and on behalf of your client too, I think that's an important service you're providing. I want to make sure people are able to kind of defend themselves and make their case always, and we try to be as fair as we can. Part of the dilemma in this case is that we don't have kind of good proof on either side, so it feels like a little bit like we're haggling over, well, officer, maybe it couldn't be this much. Maybe I could pay that much on the ticket. It kind of brings me to a bigger question in our community. I don't know how to be most fair in this particular instance, but from a wider perspective, I'm pretty clear on where I stand. It sounds to me like you're clear that the process of bringing furniture into these homes and staging for pictures or in anticipation of getting the occupancy certificate is running afoul of our bylaws. And so I can tell you the wider community sees that. And when we see builders and developers and realtors cutting corners, skirting bylaws, taking advantage of our education first approach where we try to work with everybody and bring everybody to succeed, because that's the kind of community we want to be. But people are fed up with that. And this may be a case where this becomes a big fine and people talk about it in the community, and it's the unfortunate situation where I'm an old hockey player, you slash me, I punch you back, the ref sees me and I go to the box. This might be one of those cases. all I know is people are fed up with folks taking advantage of our processes. And I don't know how many days, doesn't look like we have good proof either way. What I do know is it seems like you're aware that this is not according to our policies and bylaws, and it's happening anyway, despite many warnings. And nothing you've said today has assured me otherwise. And so I see no recourse other than to just go with administration's recommendation, which is to uphold the full value of the fine. That's where I'm at.
Thank you, Councillor. Seeing no further questions for our presenter, thank you for presenting. We do appreciate that. So at this point, I will make the motion in the report, and then council is free to debate the motion in its entirety, and we'll go from that point forward. So, Madam Clerk, would you please put the motion on the screen? Thank you. I'll move that no change be made to the 25 fees and charges. At this point, we'll open up members of council for debate on the motion before us. Councillor Van Newkirk? Oh, pardon me. I have Councillor McGough-Swain first, then Councillor Van Newkirk. Sam, you have the floor.
Thanks. Yeah, an interesting, challenging topic. I think for me, personally, I think when I see everything that's been put in front of us, 45, 48 days seems harsh, aggressive. I take Councillor Penrod's point, cutting corners, all that sort of stuff. The challenge that I have is that I don't know, I don't have proof or evidence, for lack of a better term, on what that day is, when that went in, when it came out, etc. And so anything up here, we'll just, throw a random number at it, and there's really no basis for it. I think for council to levy that fine, I think it'll be tough for when it was first on MLS. But I don't see any other path other than to potentially see, like we asked, if the builder or the realtor on behalf of the builder had any evidence of those photos when they were taken. That's all digitally logged. It shouldn't be too hard to find. So that could be one path here, where we see if we can get that information as opposed to just drafted up receipts. But then again, that just pushes out the process. So I think implementing a levy of nearly 40K on that would be tough. The only place I could see is if we deferred a bit more time to get some of the evidence that we were looking for. But I also recognize that we're not judges, court of law up here, and we don't it's going to be very hard for us to implement it. So with all that, it's we have administration there for a reason. And they've been through the background, they've gone through it. And so clearly this is an instance that they're not taking this lightly. This isn't levying a fine such as this is something that they know is going to cause an impact, and I don't think that they're doing it lightly. So I'm interested to hear what everyone else says on this one. We'll see where that goes between the 4.5, 5 of us. So.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Pardon me. Councillor Van Newkirk, followed by Councillor Nantalaba. Stephen, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor, and thanks to the presenter for being available tonight for some questions. Appreciate that. For me, what this sounds like is quite a use of bylaws time. There is an endless list of things that are required to be looked after by bylaw in this community, and this is one of them. And this seems to be one of those issues that can just keep going and going and going. I know when bylaw comes to my house, if there's an infraction, I fix it. We've heard tonight about multiple warnings, issues, infractions, whatever it all is. This isn't an episode of Judge Judy here. And I'm not saying that to make light of anything. It's I truly believe that this should have been sorted out with administration and communication and conversation, and I understand the process is what has brought us here. What I don't know is how many others are doing this and how much more time could be spent on this issue. Like if if the administration goes looking, how many other instances of this are there? I don't know. The rules are in place to be followed, and big picture, I think Councillor Penrod gave quite a a view of the big picture of the residents' concerns, because I've heard everything loud and clear that Councillor Penrod has heard about Beaumont's growth, about the concerns of how neighborhoods are being treated, and the laundry list of things that happen in a growth-impacted community such as Beaumont. And for me, the rules in place and they need to be followed by everyone. So that's where my head's at on this one. This is a large fine, but where do we go from here? Are we just going to throw a dart and say, no, it's 6 days, no, it's 5 days? I don't have that information in front of me. Administration has spent hours on this, I'm sure. This hasn't been come to lightly. I can assure everyone. And administration has put this in front of us for a reason, and we'll vote on it. So thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Telebas. Nathan?
Perfect. Thank you. Again, thank you for the presentation. I think my biggest concern with this is, this wasn't a one-off where there's a scenario where we're putting furniture in a house and we didn't realize what we did wrong. So my understanding, and even when I looked at the initial report, I only saw that there was one other warning. So even then, my stance was like, okay, potentially still didn't get the message. But when there's been multiple warnings, that's my concern. As far as I'm concerned, based on that, it's a compliance issue, and actively not listening to the requirements or not following the requirements of safety codes officer. So for that reason, I do feel that this needs to remain in effect, and it really needs to be a message to all builders that we need to follow the rules, because A, residents are upset, but B, the safety side of things. Fortunately, there was no concern in terms of safety or injury here, but definitely the potential's there. So I would encourage all builders to make sure that we're familiar with the requirements, and especially if we're given 1, 2, 3 warnings, let's make sure we follow them.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor McGoss-Swain for a final comment, and then I will call for the vote. Sam, you have the floor.
Yeah, thanks, and sorry, I think it's a really important decision that we're going to make. So I just want to check back with administration around the timing, Ms. Raymond, of this, right? Like there was a good question asked about when those photos were taken. Did we seek that, or did we try to obtain that? There was kind of a discussion, but I wasn't quite sure if we got into that. Like, do we try to find out when those initial photos were taken?
Ms. Raymond?
Thank you. Through the mayor to Councillor Munkoff-Swain. We did reach out to the builder to confirm those dates when we found it on MLS, confirm that. They didn't respond back to say that those dates were incorrect. So that was then when they went forward. But to your other point of your question, we're not confirming that aspect. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess I'm nearly there. I just think, this is an issue. Everything that's been said about, following bylaws, I get all that. I also want this issue to be put to bed, and I'm not going to put myself in their shoes, but, $48,000 fine, they have another recourse to Councillor Penrod's perspective or questions earlier on, and they could drag it out even longer. So, whereas a more moderate fine in the middle or something like that, maybe we just kind of pack up and go home. But the fact that we reached out and asked that information, Ms. Raymond, kind of unfortunately seals my vote there. So I'll leave it there. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor. One final comment for myself before I call the vote is this situation is not easy for us, people in this situation. I do think Councillor Van Newkirk is correct. They shouldn't have got to council. It should have been negotiated somewhat with administration, but administration is doing their job. We empower them to follow with the bylaws to do their job, and after numerous warnings, this builder seemed to not heed the warnings, and I find it difficult that the builder's not here himself to answer some questions about what he did or didn't understand about the report, saying that there were numerous warnings, including the amount of the daily fine that could have been imposed in the first infraction. I find this, unfortunately, that's difficult, but at the same time, the community is unhappy with a lot of builders in town who aren't following the rules, as Councillor Penrod mentioned, and unfortunately, this situation is a rather glaring one, and it's unfortunate, but that's where we're at right now with this decision. So, seeing no further members of council with any questions, would you please initiate the voting process? Councillor Penrod, how do you vote, please? That's okay. Councillor Tenlebus, my screen is also not showing you. Are you in favor or opposed?
Just looking for clarity, because the title doesn't really match the text below.
Okay,
I just, voting in favor, confirming that it's the text below, so no change to the
Which-
actual.
which means the final stay as is.
Correct.
If you vote yes or no. You're voting yes? Councillor Penrod, you verbally said yes. Thank you. Thank you, council. The motion carries unanimously, 5-0 in favor of, pardon me? Councillor Barnard, are you with us now?
Yes, I am. Sorry,
Okay.
Mayor, I apologize.
We're at
for
the vote
bouncing.
stage. Have you heard the entire discussion?
Yep. Yes, I have, and I will vote in favor with council. Yes.
Thank you, councillor. That carries unanimously then, 6-0 in favor of the motion as presented. Thank you, administration. Thank you, council. Give me 1 second here. Pardon me, 7.1, which has a non-statutory advisement, where we could start item 8.1, but let's take a 10-minute break and we'll come back and we'll begin with item 7.1 with first reading, which allow us to have the public hearing around 6 o'clock, 6:05. Those who are here for the public hearing, you'll bear with us for a few minutes, but I'd rather not start something we can't finish and then delay the public hearing, because you're here to be part of the public hearing. So with that, we are adjourned for, let's say, 8 minutes. Let's get back here if we can at 10:02 and do the first reading and then into the statutory public hearing. We are adjourned for approximately 7 minutes. Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Still
I'm
with us?
here. Yes, I'm here, Mayor.
Okay, great. Just give us half a second here. No, the cowboy's back in the room. Yeah, he's coming. Good, great. Hey, we're live back. We're called to order and resume our meeting here at 5:54 in the evening, beginning with item 7.1, bylaw 1086-25, offsite levy bylaw, first reading, non-statutory public hearing, and second reading. I believe, Mr. Meninga, you'll be presenting this evening on behalf of administration, so please let me find your microphone for you there. I think. Yep, your microphone's on. Trevor, begin whenever you're ready, please.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Trevor Monica. I'm the long-range engineer with Planning and Development. Just going to check, can you guys hear me okay up there?
Yes, we're fine, thank you.
Perfect, thank you. I'm joined tonight by Kendra Raymond and Joanna Swong with Planning and Development, and we'll also be joined shortly by Amy McGowan from Urban Systems, our consultant on this project. She'll be joining via Zoom. I'm here today to present bylaw 1086-25, the proposed offsite levy bylaw, for your consideration. This bylaw represents a comprehensive update to our offsite levy program. Last underwent an update in 2019. New development is contributing equitably towards the infrastructure required to support growth. The offsite levy bylaw is enacted under Section 648 of the MGA and aligns with the offsite levies regulation. The bylaw was drafted in-house and supported by external legal review. And administration undertook a scan of existing offsite levy bylaws from across the region and the province to inform the development of the new bylaw. The updated OSL program is built on the 4 guiding principles that reflect the city's strategic goals and financial needs, aligns with the requirements of the MGA and the offsite levies regulation, and meets the expectations of our development community. The first principle is the financial sustainability. This principle is all about ensuring that the city can deliver growth-related infrastructure without compromising its long-term financial health. Municipalities often face financial risk when they front-end capital projects without having a sufficient levy program in place. This is especially true when borrowing is required to front-end infrastructure ahead of development. The updated model in the new bylaw accounts for the necessary growth infrastructure and planned land and development staging, along with factoring in inflation, interest, and borrowing costs to ensure that the levy rates reflect the true cost of delivering infrastructure. By doing so, we reduce the risk of shortfalls and avoid placing an undue and unfair burden on taxpayers. The second principle is fairness and equity. We've designed this program to ensure that those who benefit from the infrastructure contribute to its costs. If a project benefits the entire community, such as a major arterial road or a fire hall, the city may contribute a portion of the funding along with growth. But where infrastructure is needed solely to support new development, those costs are allocated to the growth. This approach is in alignment with the MGA and ensures that development pays its fair share. The third principle is administrative efficiency. While fairness is important, we also need to manage the program effectively. Highly complex cost recovery models can be difficult to administer and may end up creating confusion or delays. Administration has worked diligently to strike a balance by using clear and consistent methodologies that are easy to apply and understand. This simplifies the administration of the levy while maintaining fairness in its application. And the fourth and final principle is transparency. It's essential to building trust with the public, developers, and council. All assumptions, inputs, and calculations used in the levy model are documented in the background report attached to the bylaw as Schedule C. Throughout the project, we've also held 6 formal engagement sessions with the development industry to review the model assumptions and incorporate the feedback. Going forward, we'll be providing annual reporting to council on levy collections, expenditures, and fund balances to ensure continued accountability. These 4 principles have guided every aspect of the offsite levy program, from how we calculate the rates to how we've allocated the costs, and ensure that the program supports Beaumont's vision for sustainable and equitable growth. The new program uses a brand new financial model that has been developed ground up from the program principles. The financial model uses several key inputs to ensure accurate and sustainable rate setting. We've assumed a 2% interest rate on positive fund balances and 4.4% borrowing costs on negative balances. Inflation has been set at 4% for the first 2 years and 2% annually thereafter. These parameters are embedded in the model and help us forecast levy rates and cash flows over time. In addition to these financial assumptions, the program uses 2 distinct approaches for cost recovery: the build-out timeframe and the revolving window timeframe. The build-out timeframe is used for infrastructure categories like wastewater collection, water supply and storage, and fire services. The approach assumes full development of the benefiting area and is calculating levy rates based on the total projected cost of the infrastructure divided by the total developable area. It provides a long-term view and ensures that all costs are distributed equitably across all future development within that area. The other approach is the revolving window timeframe, which we've applied to water distribution and transportation infrastructure. This approach uses a 25-year horizon, includes all infrastructure expected to be constructed within that 25-year window. This method allows us to periodically update and reflect changes in growth patterns and development staging, and is particularly applicable to infrastructure that is evolving incrementally over time. In addition, the program distinguishes between citywide and basin-specific levy collection methods. Citywide collection applies to infrastructure that can benefit the entire municipality, such as major water mains, arterial roads, and fire services. In these cases, the levy rates are uniform across basins to reflect the shared benefit. Note that infrastructure costs are still allocated appropriately to either growth and/or existing development based on proportional benefit. Basin-specific collection is used for infrastructure with localized benefit, such as sanitary trunks and lift stations. Rates will vary by basin based on the specific projects and their costs associated with each area. This is ensuring that developers will only pay for the infrastructure that directly supports their development. As part of the project, we looked at the growth areas for the city of Beaumont. The model takes into account the anticipated growth and land staging for the city. Based on the most recent EMRB population forecast and local planning, we anticipate a population increase of approximately 21,000 residents by 2049, and an additional approximately 581 hectares of gross development area to support that. You can see on the figure there, the growth areas in the next 25 years are highlighted in blue, just based on best estimates and servicing plans, along with input from the development community. Development is distributed across 9 basins total. These growth areas are based on improved area structure plans, our utility and stormwater management master plan, logical servicing sequencing, and input from the development community. And we've also included in the southeast corner there, build-out of the industrial lands and innovation park. I'll just walk briefly through the 4 infrastructure categories included in the updated levy program. First off, we have sanitary projects. These projects include lift stations and trunk extensions that are 525 millimeters or larger in diameter. These projects are 100% allocated to new growth, recovered on a site-specific basis using a build-out capacity approach. Compared to the previous model, there were some minor adjustments to basin boundaries to account for updates in the servicing strategy for some of the new growth areas. Water projects are divided broadly into distribution and supply and storage. So for distribution, on the map there, you see the distribution projects that are included. Includes water mains that are over 300 millimeters in diameter, which have a benefit to the broader network, and allocated to growth citywide. Water supply and storage projects include reservoirs, booster stations, and supply lines are also citywide, and the majority of these projects are also allocated 100% to growth. However, there are a few projects I'll highlight, waters 1, 3, and 5. They are allocated partially to existing development as they are designed to alleviate some deficiencies within the existing system. And finally, or sorry, not finally, transportation projects include both arterial corridor upgrades and arterial intersections. So these projects are allocated citywide and 100% to growth, with one exception. We have Project 4, which is the upgrade of the 50th Street and Township Road 510 intersection, which has a component that will improve the existing level of service and address some safety needs there. And last, fire services. Fire services is a new category in the levy. Right now in the model, we've included Fire Hall number 2, which is generally located in the north part of Beaumont, and the fire services component of the new planned multi-service facility that's tentatively located in Innovation Park. Costs for fire halls are allocated to both existing development and growth based on the proportion of the future growth areas served, and they are recovered citywide, so the rates for that is uniform across the city. I have a slide up with the rates here, which are also included in the bylaw itself. Levy rates are essentially calculated using a cash flow model that's going to account for our project costs, inflation, interest, and growth projections. In the bylaw, we have rates published for 2025, 2026, and 2027. We also have a provision that if the bylaw, for some unforeseen reason, is not updated prior to the start of 2028 or January 1, 2028, the rates will be automatically increased by 2% to account for inflation. However, I will note it is administration's intention that the bylaw would be updated prior to 2028. And we do have another provision that it will be updated at a minimum every 3 years. I'll just speak a little bit about stakeholder engagement. It was a key component as part of the project and through the development of the updated offsite levy program itself. The city held 6 engagement sessions with members of the development industry throughout the planning and modeling process, and I must say that development industry is very engaged with us, and you can see we have many members of them here today. We really appreciate their attendance tonight. The sessions we had with the Development Ministry covered a range of topics, starting with the first principles of the program. We talked about infrastructure delivery philosophy, benefit allocation, the financial assumptions for the model, and the methodology itself. Administration carefully considered the feedback from developers and incorporated it where it aligned with the program's guiding principles. The engagement process helped ensure transparency, build trust, and improve the practicality of the program. While not all feedback could be incorporated, we feel that the engagement process significantly improved the clarity, fairness, and practicality of the final program. Just in terms of the bylaw implementation, levies received will be tracked in separate funds going forward and can only be used for their intended infrastructure category. So we'll be having separate accounts for each infrastructure type. And that will be documented in an annual report, as I mentioned earlier, presented to council, and we'll be detailing levy collections, expenditures, and fund balances for each category. I would like to note that there is an existing offsite levy policy, council policy, C2, that is currently in effect. At this time, administration is continuing efforts to prepare updated guidance for the implementation of the new offsite levy program. At this point, this may take the form of either an updated council policy or a separate external-facing guide or manual. In the interim, the existing council policy C2 will remain in effect. Administration is aware that there are some minor conflicts between the proposed bylaw and the policy, which will be addressed in the updated guidance document. In the meantime, the bylaw will supersede the policy should any conflict come to be realized. Administration does recommend that council give first and second reading to bylaw 1086-25, and a non-statutory public hearing will be held tonight to ensure transparency and provide an opportunity for community input. And thank you for your time, and administration is happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Trevor. Appreciate the presentation. Just give me 1 second here. Okay. With that, I see Councillor Penrod. Nope. Okay. Madam Clerk, would you please put first reading on the screen? I'll make first reading motion, and then we can ask questions of administration before we move to the non-statutory public hearing. I will move that bylaw 1086-25 off-site levy bylaw, a bylaw to establish off-site levies in the city of Beaumont, be given first reading. With that, I'll be open to members of council for questions and debate, question of administration and debate on first reading. Any questions for administration on the presentation so far? Councillor Barnhart, I can't see you on my screen. Are you with us? Do you have any questions of administration?
Yes, I do, Mayor. I was just trying to get my notes. It's kind of hard when you're in a car, I got to tell you that. But I'm working on it here.
Okay.
So my question was around whether or not this is included or not. I just don't understand whether trails and sidewalks are part of the transportation infrastructure. Could the administration please answer that question?
Trevor? Your mic's still on.
Yes, through to Councillor Barnhart, thank you for the question. Trails and sidewalks that are part of the arterial corridors, so our arterial roadways, the major roadways around Beaumont that are ultimately going to be 4 lanes, like 50th Street, talking about Township Road 510, Range Road 243, Range Road 241. Those are arterial roadways. The trails and sidewalks that are installed at the time of those road upgrades would be included. But projects that happen in the interim to that, we cannot include those to be in alignment with the MGA.
Okay, so that it's strictly around growth in the new areas, not existing neighborhoods.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, thank you. That was my only question, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Barnhart. Councillor Van Newkirk, you have the floor now, Steve.
Yeah, thank you. Staying with that theme, just asking a little bit more specific of a question. On the pathways and trails, so focused on growth, sorry, I can see you now. Focused on growth, so just for clarity, would a pathway to La Rev be something that is triggered underneath this?
Yeah, through to Councillor Van Newkirk. Thank you for that question as well. The trail specifically to La Rev, no, is not included under the offsite levy. There are no arterial corridor upgrades planned along 50th Street to that location. However, I mentioned earlier, an arterial upgrade, intersection upgrade at 50th Street and Township Road 510. That project is intended to include some provisions for pedestrian access and essentially is setting the stage for that trail construction in the future. That project is in the levy, and as I mentioned, it does have some benefit to both growth and to existing development.
Yeah, well, that's great, just asking for some clarity on that. I'm just wondering, can you go back to the figure that had the light blue areas on it? I just wanted to ask a question on the genesis of that figure. It was the one that said growth areas, and it was urban systems, figure 1. Page 48 of the PDF, I don't know if that helps, but. Yeah, that's the one. I'm just wondering if you can speak to how it was determined what was going to be blue, I guess, in its simplest form.
Yes, through to Councillor Van Newkirk, thank you for that question. We have a starting point for the growth, I guess, the growth projections and staging coming out of our utility and stormwater management master plan. And essentially those areas are based on staging that's embedded within the different area structure plans, neighborhood structure plans that are approved by council, and also tied back to the logical servicing of those lands, and to essentially, where it makes sense to connect and expand the city's water and sanitary servicing systems. And then taking in some feedback from the development community on, development plans and the realities of land ownership within the city limits, and that's essentially how we arrived at this map.
Yeah, that's good. So basically the expected utility growth, approved ASPs, good conversations with the developers and their intentions, is how we landed up here. The reason I ask this is because it is kind of a loaded figure for those who, look a little bit more closely and think about the community. So I just wanted to point that out. So, Mayor, that concludes my questions.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Markgraf-Swain. Sam, you have the floor now.
Thank you. More of a process question, given we've got a public hearing coming up. Just on the recommendation here, we've got first reading, public hearing, second reading. I don't hate it. I'm just curious on is it because we've got, we only got one more meeting left and the timeline before election? Like what drove kind of, typically we do first reading and then we wait a couple of weeks and we have the public hearing and then second and third reading. Just curious if you could speak to why we framed it this way.
Ms. Raymond.
Sure, I'll take part of that, and then if I've missed anything, Ms. Dargy can chime in. Originally, this was intended to come to council earlier, I believe back in just before break. We were aiming to actually bring the bylaw forward. We needed more time to work with the development community and to be able to give them more time to review the draft. So we did push this back to August 26th. Originally, we were intending upon doing all three readings and the public hearing in one meeting, trying to be able to get this over the finish line here before the election. After the break, we reviewed that plan and we determined that maybe that's not the best way forward, and we wanted to provide any opportunity for, if council wanted to make any alterations as a result of the public hearing, we wanted to still be able to have time to do that. So right now we do have that time. That's why we're going to go to third reading in September here. We just wanted to give a bit of time to be able to respond to the public hearing, but that's why this process is a bit strange. I'll also note that this is a non-statutory public hearing, so we're not actually required to hold one. We just have always done them for our off-site levies. It is another example of how we're going above and beyond for stakeholder and developer consultation. Provides an opportunity for those people that maybe weren't part of all of those different sessions to come and provide their feedback to council. So that's why this one's a little weird. Joanne, anything else?
Yeah, thanks. And maybe just to speak to it, typically we have the public hearing and then second and third reading, mainly to, maybe not mainly, but part of the reason is to avoid us up here getting in trouble, like in between those times, right? Like of, hey, there's a public hearing, and then we seek feedback once that public hearing is closed. That can be a bit challenging. Like, how do you deal with that? People approaching you, et cetera. Can you just speak to the non-statutory part of this, and if that potentially impacts that, or is it more just, hey, for a couple of weeks, just council, you're thinking on it, and you're not supposed to take any feedback? Could you just help us on that from that perspective?
Ms. Darjay?
Sure, thank you to Councillor Moncouf-Swain. So a non-statutory public hearing and a statutory public hearing are still public hearings, and they're governed in the same way. The difference is that a statutory public hearing is required by legislation. So through a non-statutory public hearing, you should still remain, have procedural fairness, ensure that you're not taking information outside of the public hearing. You can ruminate on the discussions, but not engage further with anyone outside of the public hearing.
Yeah, appreciate that. Thanks for the clarity, and I just wanted to, it was a little bit weird speaking up here, I understand why.
Oh, I didn't touch your mic. That was weird.
Mayor's cutting me off, that's fine. He's had 2 more chances to
I'll
do
get
that.
2 more chances.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, thanks for clarifying that, because I know it can be a bit of an awkward process potentially, but, and I think a good reminder on us around that process. So again, no concerns with it. I understand why. Happy to move forward with that. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor. Seeing no further questions from anybody on council on first reading. So with that, would you please initiate the voting process for first reading? Councillor Barnhart, how do you vote if you're still connected to us? I know you're intermittent.
I am in favor, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. That carries unanimously. Council, 6-0 in favor of first reading. So with that, we're going to move to the non-statutory public hearing, which, as our Madam Clerk mentioned, we do this as courtesy to the community to make sure we're transparent and giving every opportunity for input in a non-statutory public hearing environment. So, Madam Clerk, would you please go through the rules of the public hearing, and then we'll proceed accordingly. Madam Clerk, you have the floor.
Sorry, Mayor, because this is a non-statutory public hearing, we'll have a motion from council to move into the public hearing.
Oh,
To move
my
forward to the
mistake.
public hearing.
I'll move that a non-statutory public hearing be held for bylaw 1086-25. Discussion of the motion, members of council? See no discussion. Would you please initiate the voting process? Councillor Barnhart?
In favor.
In favor, thank you. That carries unanimously, 6-0 in favor of the non-statutory public hearing motion. Madam Clerk, now I'll go back to you for the rules regarding the public hearing, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Welcome to the August 26th meeting to speak to council on advertised bylaws or certain resolutions. We have been accepting written submissions in the weeks preceding this public hearing, and the deadline for written submissions was noon, August 25th. We have not received any written submissions. Registration to present at the public hearing by electronic means was required by 4:00 p.m. on August 25th. Registration to present in person is permitted in advance of the public hearing or here at the public hearing today. Currently, we have 1 in-person speaker registered and an additional 5 others willing and ready to answer any questions council may have. We do not have anyone registered to participate by electronic means for today's public hearing. The procedure for public hearings is as follows. Administration will first make a further presentation on the bylaw, and council will be invited to ask further questions of clarification. Finally, members of the public who are registered to speak or those who are present here will be invited to make their respective presentations. If anyone here has not yet registered to speak, I ask that you please raise your hand now so that we may get your name and add you to the list of presenters.
Guys, this is your chance if you wish to speak at the public hearing.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Council will first hear from those who are in favor of the bylaw, then those who are opposed, and then anyone else who wishes to be heard. Each speaker presenter will have up to 5 minutes to speak or present, and then council will have the opportunity to ask questions of clarification. When it is your turn to make your presentation, please ensure your microphone or audio is working and state your full name for the record before beginning. Your 5 minutes will start when your presentation starts, and there will be a clock on the screen in front of you to track your 5-minute allotted time. Please remain at the microphone once you're done presenting, as council may ask you questions following your presentation. Once council has heard all the presentations, the public hearing will be closed, and the regular session of council will reconvene so that council may decide on the matter. On a final note, the city's public hearings are recorded as a webcast, which will be made available for viewing on the city's website. Thank you, Mayor Daniluk.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Appreciate that. So public hearing is open. So at this time, I will invite administration to make, as noted, a brief presentation to begin the public hearing. Madam Clerk, is there something else?
No,
Just one
that's fine.
second. Okay, your mic is off. Just hang on for a second, folks. We're good? Okay. With that, administration, I welcome you to make a brief presentation as outlined in Madam Clerk's comments, and your microphone is on, Trevor. Oh, yeah, it's on. You know, it's on my screen, it's on. That's weird. Hang on. Let's try it again. Maybe technical. Jiggle the connection, because it's on my screen as being on. It's red, which your microphone should be on. It worked before. Okay, hang on a second. Okay, we'll just take a short recess here, and we'll just transfer another mic over to you. Sure. Yeah, and then now it's off again. It's just, my screen says it's on. Sorry, guys, we'll just get this technical glitch figured out. Trevor, why don't you join us at the front desk, because number 5 is on at the table, so why don't you join us there, please? That's so weird. When you're ready, Trevor, please. Thank you. It's okay. It's just a recap of before. He'll just be a moment. We'll continue on. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Again, good evening, council.
Yeah, you're on. Yep.
I'll be brief.
I didn't touch it.
Yeah, it's going to connecting.
Okay. All right, we're going to take a 5-minute recess and maybe reboot the system, because my screen says on and your mic is off. So 5-minute recess, kill the live feed, please, and we'll be back in 5 minutes once we get this thing figured out. So thanks for your patience, everybody. Yeah. Thank you. We're live back after a short technical break, which we think we got it figured out. So with that, I'll go back to your seat there, Trevor. Number 7, your microphone is on and it's holding on. So when you're ready, please begin your brief presentation as part of the non-statutory public hearing when you're ready. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, and good evening, Mayor and Council. Again, my name is Trevor Monica, long-range engineer with Planning Development, and I'll just note that I am joined via Zoom by our consultant, Amy McGowan with Urban Systems. She's available to help answer any questions should they arise. As mentioned earlier, this offsite levy bylaw update is a comprehensive update to the offsite levy program. We worked to revise the program ground up, including development of a new model and new bylaw. Just draw your attention to within the bylaw itself. We have all of the background information is now attached to the bylaw for reference. So in Schedule A, we have the infrastructure projects that are included, along with their costs and their benefit allocations. Schedule B includes all of the levy rates, both by, I'll just bring that up here, both by infrastructure type, as well as by basin. And again, those rates are included for 2025, 2026, and 2027. All of the information that was used to develop these rates is included in Schedule C in the background report. So that is a technical document that includes, again, the calculations and the overall development and philosophy of the levy program. I'll just give a quick example of the rates here that would be in effect, just to make sure it's clear for everybody. If we were looking in 2025 for sanitary basin 1, the rate for the sanitary basin 1 is $15,687, and that would essentially be added to the rest of the rates. So water distribution, $97.27, water supply and storage, $111,273, arterial corridor improvements and arterial intersections, $121,931, and fire services, $19,940. That's for the total of $278,009 is coming from for Basin 1 2025 levy total. And those are all assessed as per hectare costs. I'll speak a little bit again about the stakeholder engagement. And in addition to the engagement sessions we held with the development industry, we also held 2 engagement sessions with council earlier in 2025 and in the fall of 2024. Just to give some background on the program development as it moved forward from first principles through to some of the financial modeling and the outputs that were being generated at the time. But in addition to that, we also had a very engaged internal administration working group consisting of representatives from infrastructure, finance, protective services, LLS, community services, and planning development. We had numerous workshops and meetings internally to ensure that the program reflected the needs of all departments and it captured all infrastructure requirements going forward. That can conclude my presentation for this portion of the public hearing.
Thank you, Mr. Marinka. Appreciate that. This time, members of council, any questions for our presenter before we move to any public portion of the public hearing? Councilor Barnhart, are you with us? Any questions at this point? Okay, we may have lost her. Okay, no problem. Sorry. 1 second. Sam, you have a question?
Sorry, given the fact that we're in a public hearing, can we just confirm who's all here? Because it'll determine who can vote and everything like that. So.
Yeah, actually, you read my mind on that one. I'm just reading a note from, Ms. Dargy, you want to, Sam read my mind on, with Kathy's situation, how do we handle it to make sure it's procedural fairness given her inability to be consistently online? Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mayor. The MGA states that if a councillor has been absent from all of the public hearing, they must abstain from voting. If they have been absent from a portion of the public hearing, they may abstain from voting. So if she's absent for the entire public hearing, she's not permitted to vote. But if she has been able to be part of the public hearing, a portion of it, she may abstain, and that's entirely up to the councillor.
Okay, so Kathy, she's not with us right now, so am I to assume she's not part of the public hearing?
Currently, she's not, but I'm not sure if she'll be able to join us for a portion of it. We will keep track of that.
Okay, we'll keep track of it, and we'll make sure we address that question at the appropriate time of voting, okay?
Correct.
And we'll do the best we can to make sure we follow the rules and be fair to Councillor Barnhart, who's trying to do her best to be part of the process, so, on her vacation day. So appreciate that. So having said that, there are no questions from council for Trevor's subsequent presentation. We're now in the public hearing portion. There's 6 gentlemen in front of me who are part of the public hearing. You guys aren't armed, are you? None of you guys are, we're good, we're calm? Okay. Are one of you speaking? I believe, Adam, you're speaking. Anybody else wishes to speak as well? We had you registered previously. My understanding is Adam will speak for the group. Is that my understanding? Adam, please join us when you can. And at this point, we're looking for people speaking in favor of the bylaw. Adam, are you speaking in favor of the bylaw?
I am speaking in favor.
Thank you. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you.
Welcome to council.
Good evening, Mayor Daniluk and City Council. My name is Adam Holm. I'm the manager for Metro Strategy for Build Edmonton Metro, a nonprofit organization representing over 500 companies in the building and development industry. Our members are committed and recognize their role in partnership with the municipality to shaping our region and developing lands in ways that create beautiful neighborhoods where more people and businesses choose to live, invest, and thrive. I'm joined here by a number of other Build members who have been active in building great communities in Beaumont, and they're here to answer any questions council might have. We would like to acknowledge the efforts of administration to share information with industry and work towards the meaningful consultation requirements of the Municipal Government Act, some of which actually occurred even today, as a matter of fact. And we also acknowledge that administration has listened to our feedback and made reasonable adjustments to reflect a levy rate that is fair for all parties. We are here speaking generally in support of the proposed updated offsite levy bylaw. Beaumont is growing quickly, and industry recognizes the existing off-site levy rates need updating, and industry is ready to play its role. We would also point out that the magnitude of the change is significant, about 4 times higher than the previous rates, and we've asked administration to commit to a more regular review of the bylaw to provide an opportunity to reconfirm the impact of this significant jump in the levy rates so that adjusted budgeted costs and contingencies can better ensure that the levy rates are appropriate. We suggested a review period of 2 or perhaps 3 years, and administration indicated a preference for the latter, for 3 years. But given the circumstances, we would still encourage a reduced monitoring period of the bylaw to give council the opportunity to ensure that there have been no unintended effects of the higher rates, such as potentially might impact housing affordability. But in closing, we really, again, want to thank administration for their efforts to update the offsite levy bylaw, and we're looking forward to any continued collaboration that might occur between now and when this comes to you again for third reading, possibly in September. And so, as I indicated before, the gentlemen behind me here are happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Mr. Holm, thank you for the presentation and the endorsement of the work that was done, especially on the communication part and engagement with the development community, because you are key stakeholders in our community in terms of development, and input from you is critical to make sure that our levies are reasonable, competitive in the region, and treats our development community and consumers who buy products from you in a fair manner. So much appreciated for your feedback this evening. Any questions from members of council for Mr. Holm or any of his colleagues from the various development companies in the area who do work in Beaumont? Seeing no question. Oh, Councillor Van Nieuwkerk. Stephen, you have the floor.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for presenting tonight. And based upon the short presentation that you put forward, it sounds like there was some good dialogue between the group and administration. Just wondering if you can elaborate on that.
I don't mind doing that, yep. Yeah, I think there was some really good dialogue on that. I have to admit, I came in after some of the initial public consultation sessions, right about the time that the actual numbers started to get presented. And of course, you know, in many ways, once the numbers actually are on paper, that's when the real discussions happen. And administration, I think it would be fair to say, but I'm sure one of these guys will grab me if they disagree. I think it would be very fair to say that administration was very receptive to our requests for further work, further meetings, so that our point of view could be taken into account. And I think that we saw that in a number of the adjustments that were made to the levies that have made up the bylaw.
Thank you. Nice to hear.
Thank you, Councillor. You guys are good? Saw the thumbs up. Perfect. Any further questions for our presenter from the development community? Again, echo your comments. We do appreciate the fact that you acknowledge and agree that our administration was open and collaborative with the community on how this bylaw. Anytime you want to increase fees, there's always some potential for controversy and some disagreement, but I'm glad we were able to come to a bylaw that is agreeable to all parties and fair to all parties. That's the important thing. And looks after growth in Beaumont, which of course we all know is virtually exponential. It's exciting, but it's also challenging. So thank you for your presentation, Adam. Mr. Holm, appreciate that.
Thank you all.
Anybody in the room, the public wishes to speak against the bylaw, which is the next part of the public hearing process? Seeing none, anybody who deems himself to be affected who wishes to speak to the bylaw from the public hearing perspective? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, it's okay to declare the public hearing closed at this time. Thank you. It is closed. We'll move on to, I'll move second reading of the bylaw. If you please put it on the screen I'll just do it, move things along quickly for us here. And Ms. McGowan, thank you for joining us. No questions for you, but thank you for being here. We do appreciate it remotely. Thank you. I be given second reading. With that, I'll open up to the floor, members of council, for questions and debate on second reading. Councilor Markov-Swain, you have the floor, followed by Councilor Penrod. Sam?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So first, just a thank you to administration for a lot of the background work that has gone into educate, I was going to say council, but I'll speak for myself, me around this. It's a pretty tough topic to kind of comprehend, but you guys have done a good job to get us here today. I will say that I was pleasantly surprised at the presentation that was in front of us, not what I was expecting. So yeah, credit to both administration for showing up and working through that, and to the folks in front of us here, as well as the rest of the development community for working on it. So yeah, I mean, for me, I thought when we put this forward in the discussion, I thought this was going to be a more challenging discussion, and so I'm glad we are here, and I'll be supporting second reading, and based on the conversation here and the fact that no one came up, I think it's probably worth us considering getting to third today, and there'll be a process for that. But for now, I'll support this reading, and thanks again for everyone for their collaboration on it, and pleasantly surprised. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Penrod, you have the floor before I go any further.
Thank you, Mayor Daniluk. Just a question at this stage. It's for administration. I thought it would be better after the public hearing.
Please proceed.
That's the reason I'm going for it now. Thank you for providing the former policy and for giving us the color that the former policy or it's still the policy, I guess, that it will remain in effect as we kind of develop whatever is next. I was interested to read in reviewing that at 4.2.3 and 4.2.4, it's clear that any applicants that are in the offsite levy program and have opted for deferrals are liable for rate changes. And so I wondered if that has been a part of this discussion. Does the city currently hold any credit instruments for developers that are in that deferral stage that would then potentially be impacted by these? This is a fairly significant change. I imagine this has come up in the conversations, but just wanted to shine a light on that piece.
Mr. Marenga?
Yes, through to Councillor Penrod, thank you for that question, great one. Currently, we don't have any developers that are in the installment process. That could potentially be looking at a jump for the second installment or future installments, so not a concern there. I will note that in the new bylaw, there's installment kind of baked into it. 50% development agreement before subdivision endorsement, the second half of that being due 1 year later. So in that case, with the new bylaw, there's no rate adjustment. It'll be at the time of the development agreement, but securities would be required.
Thank you. And that's actually a good segue to my second comment, which is just that, you know, anyone here tonight or watching from home might be surprised that there's not more contention or discussion. Or for me, I don't think it's that people are not interested. I think this is really good indication further to what Councillor Markov-Swain said. When good process is followed and solid communication happens over time, and I'm just referring to the timeline on the council report, this work goes back to 2019. Like soon after we had the last offsite levy approved, we began to amend it in 2022, and then this process really has been since November 29th, 2023, kind of a continuing unfolding process. When we are meticulous and we cross our T's and dot our I's, this is the result. We get to a place where there's no surprises when the thing comes to a vote. So I just want to commend again everyone who's worked so hard on this over time, and the public has weighed in on this too. It's been part of several big public conversations. So I think this is a really great next iteration that will serve the community well. And I think there's sometimes an easy narrative out there that if we're in challenging times, we sometimes look for a bad guy, and unfortunately sometimes the developers get to wear that hat. And so I just take this as a strong example of that's not the case. You're partners in growth, and just like any relationships, we sometimes butt heads a little bit, but really appreciate you coming to the table and working with our administration so proactively. I think this is going to be nothing but great for our community going forward. Look forward to continuing the process of review with you ahead.
Thank you, Councillor. Appreciate the comments. See no further comments. Councillor Barnhart, do you have any comments at this time on second reading? Okay, I'm not hearing her head being connected. So, Madam Clerk, I'm assuming then if she's not on here now, she hasn't been, I don't know for sure she's part of the entire public hearing. So are we safe to proceed with the 5 of us voting and not have Councillor Barnhart vote because she didn't respond a moment ago? Just make sure we're on side with the rules.
Thank you, Mayor Daniluk. We monitored, and Councillor Barnhart wasn't able to join in the public hearing at all.
Okay.
So she's not permitted to vote for second reading.
Good, thank you. Appreciate that. That's unfortunate, but you did make an effort to be part of the process, so I do appreciate that. So, see no further comments or debate on second reading. Would you please initiate the vote for second reading, please? Second reading vote carries unanimously, 5-0 in favor of second reading. Thank you, Council. It's my understanding now from talking to administration at the break, one of a couple of breaks we've had tonight for technical reasons, should Council have consensus, we could move to third reading this evening. Our next meeting, based on our agenda, we'll have everything cleared off our agenda tonight, which means we don't meet on September 9th. Our next meeting will be our last meeting of this term on September 16th, at which time we'll do third reading of this bylaw. Or we can do third reading this evening if Council is so disposed to proceed this evening. How do we feel about that? I'll take a consensus verbally. Is anybody opposed to doing third reading this evening? If you are, that's okay. Anybody opposed, we'll move to September 16th. If no one's opposed, I'll entertain going to third reading this evening. Sam, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think we, as you know, I think we need to actually make that motion.
Yep.
So I'm happy to make that motion to seek consensus.
Okay. Do we need a consensus motion, Madam Clerk? Okay, we'll do a consensus motion, just make sure we're following the rules. So Sam, when you're ready, we'll have the motion on the screen for you to move to consensus, and we'll go from there. When you're ready, Sam.
I will move that consideration for third reading of bylaw 1086-25 be given.
Thank you, Councillor. Wish to speak to your motion?
No, I think it's all being discussed here today.
Yep, good enough. Discussion on the motion for consideration. Seeing none, please initiate the voting process for consideration of third reading. Where's my screen? That carries unanimously, 5-0 in favor of consideration of third reading. Madam Clerk, would you please put the motion for third reading on the screen? We just drafted here because it wasn't ready to go. Just take a second. Do you wish to speak at third reading? Yeah, okay, that's what I thought. I'll move that bylaw 1086-25 be given the third reading. Discussion on the motion. Councilor Markov-Swain, you have the floor.
Thanks. Yeah, I just wanted to speak to the one comment that was made about the timely review of such a bylaw. In my experience, administration has tracked this while we said 3 years in here. In my experience, if something is coming up that admin thinks that we should review it earlier, they will bring that forward, which is why I'm comfortable. But even the feedback that was given, why I'm comfortable moving forward with how the bylaw is drafted, knowing that if we need to make changes, those will be brought forward. So I appreciate the comments that were made earlier around that particular topic, but we'll recognize that administration will bring that forward, or we probably will hear from our friends in the room again around that. So with that, I'll be supporting third reading. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor. I agree with your comments. Any further discussion on third reading? Councillor Barnhart, do you happen to be with us by any chance? No? I didn't think so, but I wanted to make sure she wasn't in the background just hearing us on third reading. Seeing no further, Councillor Natelabas, do you wish to speak to the third reading?
Yes, thank you, Mayor.
Yep.
Just to touch on the third reading, I know traditionally it's not something I'm usually in favor of, is going through all the readings because there's a lot to consume, digest, and think about. However, this has been in discussion for quite some time with current council. We've reviewed it endlessly, I'll say, and in saying that, I think it's a change in the right direction, and it's long overdue. So with that being said, I will support third reading.
Thank you, Councillor. Seeing no further comments from members of council, please initiate the voting process for third reading. That carries unanimously, 5-0 in favor of third reading. Thank you, council. Thank you, gentlemen, for your presentation. Trevor, thanks for the work on the presentation this evening. Well done, everybody. Next on our agenda is item 8.1, Community Growth Task Force. Mr. Wong, I believe you'll be presenting. Are you going to sit there, or do you want to come up here? Is it? Again? We're going to go to mic 5 here for you. We're going to go to mic 5 here for you. And mic 5's not working. It's, yeah, okay. Okay, thanks, gentlemen. Appreciate you being here. Okay. Yeah, we're going to take a 5-minute technology break, and we're going to reboot and come back in 5 minutes. Please kill the live feed. See you in 5 minutes, everybody. Again, from a slight technical glitch, we've got it fixed, we figure, so we're going to continue on with our evening this evening. So we are now on to 8.1, Community Growth Task Force. Mr. Wong, I've got you at a live microphone. Please begin when you're ready, sir.
Sure. Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Your Worship and members of Council. My name is Johannes Wong, and I'm the Manager of Long Range Planning. I'm here to present the Community Growth Task Force for Improved Public Improvement Report for your information. The planning and development process is a very logical step-by-step progress from the development of high-level concept plans to for example, municipal development plan, area structure plan, to rezoning, to subdivision, to development permit for the construction and the use of buildings for people to live, play, and work in Beaumont. The land use bylaw is an implementation tool to regulate the use and how the development will occur on a parcel of land within the city. Each of these steps corresponds to a very unique application type, and each step must be approved by the city in order to proceed to the next step in the development process. Also inherent in this process is the type and level of engagement, as well as the type of feedback that is seeking from the public in each step of the progress. This is described in Attachment 3 in the Council report. Public involvement is a very crucial part of planning and development process, whether it is legislated or as a best practice. Administration notes that if residents in a developing neighborhood were not involved in the earlier stages of the planning process, and therefore when actual construction begins, they may be surprised and sometimes frustrated with what they see. Administration is actively seeking opportunities to create awareness to inform the community to address this challenge. The report highlights some of the recent changes in creating greater awareness with the community on development applications, such as improving notification methods using standard layman terminology for easy understanding into a different templates, signage on the proposed site of development, etc. There will be extensive engagement opportunities with the public in the review of the municipal development plan in 2026-2027, subject to budget approval later on in the year. Another opportunity will be the review of the land use bylaw in 2026, also subject to budget approval. Other options of public involvement include setting up committees or a task force to provide advice to the city on growth topics. This can be a new committee or expanding the scope of the existing Beaumont Urban Design Committee to include this advisory function to the city. Other things, the planning department could participate in pop-up events during city events such as Beaumont Days or Brighten Up Beaumont to present growth information and answer questions from the public. The city could create education programs such as a planning academy on various planning topics to allow the public to understand the planning process as to participate in the planning and development process more meaningfully. However, it should be noted that other municipalities, such as City of Edmonton, have run a planning academy program previously and have had limited participation and success. Also, the city could issue newsletters or developing neighborhood check-ins to provide different venues for the public to interact and engage with the department. These additional options will require additional resources for implementation. In closing, this report highlights the importance of involving the public in planning initiatives as a high priority, recognizing the gap between when a plan is approved and the construction within the neighborhood may present some surprise and at times frustration. Administration has been and will continue to work with the public to improve creating awareness and communicate with the public on these development applications. Administration is happy to answer any questions from Council. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wong, for that presentation. Much appreciated. Members of Council have any questions for the report from Mr. Wong? Councilman Newkirk, Stephen, you have the floor.
Yeah, Mayor, not really questions, but I do have a motion that I'll want to put forward after some discussion here tonight, and maybe I'll just make a few comments now. Sure. Not necessarily to that motion, but yeah, so I'll start by pointing out the existing Urban Design Committee. The report does mention that committee, and what I would say is the existence of the committee and its role and mandate isn't widely known, and as stated in the report, it says their scope does not include providing input on broader community growth to administration. And I will point out that it also says in there that there is a citizen at large spot available on that committee. So that's that's one piece that exists, and perhaps we might highlight that more in the future or something, but I wanted to acknowledge that. The second piece is I really want to acknowledge all of the outlined and upcoming input opportunities that Mr. Wong highlighted tonight and that administration presented, and continually encourage everyone to get involved at those times. I think that's very important, and the more we talk about it in council and in the community, and the more people that get involved in that, I think the awareness rises cumulatively with all that impact. But what I would say, and this will be my final comment for now, Mayor, is that despite all those identified opportunities and given the time lapse that highlighted tonight, that can occur between that engagement input and the actions, like when you actually see everything hit in the community, I have witnessed the public growing impatient and feeling disconnected. So I'll leave my comments for now, and I'll be willing to make a motion after others have had a time to ask questions or speak. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Thank you, Councilor. Appreciate the comments and good insight on some of those comments as well. Any further questions, members of Council, for Mr. Wong and his presentation? Seeing none, not knowing the nature of your motion, Steve, Madam Clerk, should we pass the motion on report for information and then entertain Steve's motion, or we should do Steve's motion first? Not knowing the nature of it, I'm not too sure how best to proceed. Oh, I think your mic is on. I had it on a second ago. There you go.
Thank you, Mayor. We can proceed with Councillor Van Nieuwkerk's motion.
Okay, that's what I was thinking, but I want to get it clarified. So, Councillor Van Nieuwkerk, you have the floor, Steve.
Yeah, thank you. I'll just wait for the motion to be posted here. And I can speak to it in the meantime. So what I would say is
Steve, would you please make the motion first, if you don't,
Motion, sorry, let me just read this.
make sure it's clear before you proceed. Thanks.
You bet. I'll motion that administration prepare a one-page report for each of the following two options outlined in the August 26, 2025 report, Community Growth Task Force for Improved Public Involvement. 1, outreach at community events, and 2, outlining the creation and commitment to a community growth committee, not community, including all associated costs and appropriate funding sources for each option for consideration during the 2026 budget deliberations.
Thank you, Councillor. Please speak to your motion.
Yeah, thank you. So thanks to council for supporting this motion to get us to this point, and thanks to administration for thinking through this and providing some options of what can be done. Each of the options presented requires more, and that's why my motion tonight moves this conversation for contemplating more to budget deliberations, because I think that's where the appropriate place for this is. When it comes to my selection of outreach at community events and the creation of a committee, I do think that the outreach at community events is quite a novel add-on that could happen, and it can happen in the form of a booth at this market, a booth at this event, and just ask questions. I've witnessed this done quite seamlessly in communities like Parksville when you're there and you're at the market, and I witnessed that at a market and a fair, and it's simply a booth, and there's a question on the booth that day and some swag, and you know, people have their say. So I think the community might actually enjoy that community event participation, and I know that our user groups would enjoy being supported by having a Beaumont booth there. The second part, I believe, allows, and this is a little more difficult for administration to put together, but the second part of creation of a community growth committee, you know, I cheekily said to council, no one's had any other better ideas, so you guys may as well support this, right? So, you know, I'll acknowledge that. But when you get to the community growth committee part, there will be work that would have to be done to figure out what's the terms of reference, what, you know, who are the members, what is the mandate, all that, and the cost is associated with that. It's proposed there would be 4 meetings per year. I understand that. You know, there's a cost to that one that was put in as well at 15 to 20K a year plus staff time and resources. I get that. You know, current staff offerings don't allow us to spring any of this into action now, and the report says that like flat out, right? So, so tonight I'm asking for council support to you know, move these couple of ideas forward. I think the education piece is too much, 250K in professional time. I just don't think that fits the mandate. The community development newsletter, I would suggest that, you know, maybe a paragraph or two, you know, in the document that already goes out with the water bill probably is a novel approach rather than a focused development newsletter. And I think some of those developing community check-ins piece, I think that's starting to happen organically a little bit. And, you know, maybe there's some ambitions in the community to support that. So tonight I'm focusing in on 2 of the suggestions and ask for council support on those. So that's it, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Just one quick question. The Community Growth Committee, you envision this as being resident, primarily resident membership? Your mic's back on there, Steve.
Yeah, so in the, you know, in the description in here, you know, it says the goal is to provide an opportunity for enhanced communication between city administration and residents, and, you know, this task force could lead to increased dialogue on whether the growth that is occurring is in alignment with the community views and feedback, inform future amendments to planning documents, that kind of thing. So I believe it's inherent that community members would be, you know, the bulk of this. Although, you know, as the terms of reference were developed for this, perhaps there's an opportunity for other professional services to be involved. That I'm not sure.
Okay, good enough. That's good enough for right now. Appreciate that. Councillor Penrod, questions or comments?
Thanks
on the motion?
Thanks, Mayor Danlick. Just a question for you, Councillor Van Newkirk. Process-wise, I think our normal procedure is to bring a notice of motion when we're looking to direct administration on the front. Just maybe you could speak to why you wanted to bring this forward tonight in this way. I know we're tracking through a process here. It's not like this came out of left field, but if you could just speak to that, that would help me. Thanks.
Yeah, you bet. Yeah, and I think it is just what you said there. We're tracking through a process here. Community feedback leads to a notice of motion, which got us here. We have a report. The report outlines some potential next steps, accept it for information or do something with what's in the report. And tonight I'm choosing the latter, which is, the do something with what's in the report and picking a couple of items that I think would be beneficial to bring with a little bit more information to the budget conversation for 2026. So just trying to follow the steps.
Thank you.
Thanks.
You're good, Councillor? Thank you. Seeing any further discussion on the motion that Steve's put forward? Is Councillor Barnhart with us? I'm assuming she's not. I'm watching my phone in case she texts in. Okay, good enough. Seeing no further questions from council. Steve, any final comments before I call for the vote? You're good? All right, would you please initiate the voting process for the motion, please? Motion carries, unanimously, 5-0 in favor. Thank you, Councillor Van Nieuwkerk. Appreciate the motion and looking forward to seeing this at budget time. With that, we'll go back to the report. And would you please, Madam Clerk, put the motion to accept Mr. Wong's report as information? Thank you. For expediency, I'll move that the August 26, 2025 report, Community Growth Task Force for Improved Public Involvement, be received for information. Discussion on the motion. Seeing none, please initiate the voting process for this motion. That carries unanimously, also 5-0 in favor of the motion. Thank you, Mr. Wong, for that presentation. Next on our agenda is item 8.2, additional dwelling units. Ms. Raymond, I believe you'll be presenting as it came off the consent agenda. When you're ready, please.
Thank you, Mayor. A motion was passed requesting that administration provide a report that included a summary of all the existing, currently constructed or currently under construction and permitted but not yet built properties with additional dwelling units in Beaumont and include an updated map indicating all the locations within Beaumont. The report was provided, which did provide a summary of all the requested information. Dwelling unit is defined in the land use bylaw as a self-contained living premise with cooking, eating, living, sleeping, and sanitary facilities for domestic use by one or more individuals. In Beaumont, we don't distinguish between primary dwelling and secondary or additional dwellings. Dwelling unit is a permitted use in all primarily residential land use districts within the city. The number of dwelling units permitted on each parcel is regulated by the density maximums in the land use bylaw. You can see that there is a table provided on the first page of the report. It's important to note that under the previous land use bylaw, garage suites and secondary suites were discretionary in residential land use districts, with the exception of a limited number of direct control districts where they were permitted. At that time, it was not permissible to have a garage suite and a secondary suite on the same lot in any district. Prior to 2012, an additional dwelling was only permitted for the use of a family member or registered caregiver, and that exclusion is not legal as it's considered discriminatory. You cannot regulate the user of a development versus the use itself. There are additional dwelling unit statistics that are provided in a graph on the report. Some data highlights there talk about the total number of existing additional dwelling units that are constructed as being 293. The number of additional dwelling units approved but not yet constructed is 118. We have defined this as having an issued building permit, but not all inspections have been completed. So you go through a number of different inspections on a building permit, building, electrical, plumbing, and gas. And we don't have the data available to compile the number of approved additional dwelling units where construction has not began, as the City of Beaumont issues combined development and building permits. And once that permit has been issued, you have 90 days, or the applicant has 90 days to begin construction and request that inspection. We don't track currently when construction commences on a particular site. And then the number of additional dwelling units under review is 11, and that is defined as a permit application submitted, but a decision has not yet been made. These applications are not represented on the map as they may yet be refused or withdrawn. And the number of parcels with 2 additional dwelling units and a principal dwelling are 17. Just want to note that there were some inconsistencies with the mapping data between the 2022 map that was provided and the 2025 map. So the 2022 map did not distinguish between dwelling units that had been approved and those that had all permits closed and were able to be occupied. So to increase accuracy and address council's motion, staff did go through the data manually to remove permits that had been left open for several years. And so moving forward, we're going to be entering in some new additional information into our tracking system to identify when the permit service report is issued and occupancy is possible. And then no data exists to determine what percentage of additional dwelling units are occupied. And that concludes the report, and the different maps are provided in the 3 attachments.
Thank you, Ms. Raymond. I'll go to Councilor Newkirk for questions to administration on this report. Stephen, you have the floor.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor, and thank you to administration for all the work you've completed on this report. And I was just kind of madly typing some of the last stuff that Ms. Raymond said, because I think it's really important. And you know what we literally just heard is that administration did their best to get the most accurate information. Right? They really looked at it, you know, frontwards and backwards and side to side, and got manual with it. And as I speak to often, and I don't know if everyone believes me when I say, administration always makes changes on the fly and tries to be better, and we literally just heard that. So based upon the collection of data in this report, administration has already modified their approach of the information they're going to collect in the future. So I think that's great, and thank you. So for me, based on the ongoing feedback from the community over the last couple of years, that I motioned for this report, and thanks for council for supporting that. And the overall purpose of this was to provide an up-to-date look at the ADU information within the community. And here's the facts, everyone. So any of those community conversations that are happening or have happened, here's the facts. There's 3 great visual aids here to guide any conversation around ADUs that have happened. The multi-ADUs are identified. You can see where they're at. You can see how many per neighborhood, which are 1s, which are 2s, and administration's done their level best to make sure this is as accurate as possible. What I would say is I would also remind the public that council made a change early this year to reduce the number of ADUs from 3 down to 1, and have a parking stall required with every ADU. So that's all part of this conversation. And residents need to know that the council is listening, and there is a process to go through to make changes, and there is a process to go through to make information available. And the last thing I'll say, as I conclude here, is that these numbers are a snapshot in time. So as the community grows, things are going to fluctuate from here. But those 3 figures that are in front of you right now represent our current state in time with respect to ADU distribution in the community, broken down by neighborhood. So that's it.
Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you. And thank you to administration.
Thank you, Councillor. Any further questions or comments from members of council on the report? Seeing none, Councilman Newkirk, would you mind making the motion to accept the report as information when it's on the screen, please?
You bet. Next 2025 report, additional dwelling unit report, be received for information. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Do you wish to speak to the motion?
No, thank you.
Thank you. Members of council have any questions or comments on the motion? Seeing none, please initiate the voting process for the motion for information. That carries unanimously, 5-0 in favor of the motion. Thank you, administration. Thank you, council. Next on our agenda is item 8.3, quarterly financial report, Q2 2025. Mr. Bohachek, I believe you'll be presenting this evening. I'll get your mic on for you, and You are good to go. Please proceed. I'll just give you 1 minute to order the report. Just give me your presentation, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I'm going to deviate a little bit from standard practice of how this report goes in the effort of keeping everybody awake. I tried reading it myself and it nearly put me to sleep. And so I'm going to do a different version that allows, if you could just zoom in a little bit, please, Rebecca. I'm going to do a version of how I read the financial statements and hopefully provide a little bit more clarity and ease of understanding compared to all the stuff I wrote. So we're going to go in that direction. So we'll start with so this is the quarterly financial reports, municipal operating. Okay, the column that is particularly relevant is the variance over under, which is the fourth column in. You'll notice a couple of big numbers in this column. So under requisition taxes, nearly $1.5 million. And that is offset in the section below that you can't see quite yet about requisition expenses for $1.4 million. And so those are offsetting pieces, that's amounts we collect from on behalf of the province and the requisitioning bodies, and then turn that over to them. So that's those are big variances, but they don't really apply to us. So when you're left with the remainder of the revenue section, if you just go back up a little bit, we have a few big ticket items. So we have a positive variance in sale and user charges. We have a positive variance in government transfers and a positive variance in license permits and fees. And so those are largely planning and development revenue streams that are coming in favorably, as well as some additional grant dollars that we are successful in securing from various bodies. Those are offset by some underachieving areas. So we're not meeting our target of what we anticipated for rental income. This is a mixed blessing in penalties and costs of taxes. We are not going to achieve probably what we estimated we would in penalties, but that's because people paid their taxes. So that's kind of a mixed blessing, so that's good for us. And then investment income has not performed as well as we had hoped. So that $1.5 million net revenue, when you back out the 1.5 or 1.45 million of the requisition dollars that aren't really ours, we're just above zero as far as we're a little bit positive variance on our revenue side. When we look at the expense piece, you can show both bottom sections if you scroll net revenue. Perfect, thank you. Yeah. You'll see that, again, some big numbers. We'll start with the credit, okay? So that contracted general services says that we are projecting to underspend by $1.2 million. That is largely associated with the ERP implementation at this point. So we are not anticipating to spend the full amount. As you can see, we are getting really a lot of bang for our buck as far as dollars, and that's going towards that piece. And that's offsetting that transfer from reserve line in the bottom, that $819,000 is also money that we're not spending to pay for that. So those two, the savings and not spending, is also savings and not pulling from the bank account. So those kind of wash together. The other really remaining items, we already talked about the requisition expense, is so the biggest expense challenge that we're having is in personnel and supplies and materials. And so this is a little bit of a different layout than we've presented in the past. The budget and the past quarterly statements are presented from a PSAS perspective, which is an accounting standard for public sector accounting. And you'll remember that the top section is revenues, and it says, you know, taxes and requisitions and sales and charges. But then the middle section is always where it's being spent. And I found that particularly unhelpful because that doesn't tell us the why. And this is a little bit more clarity as far as that goes. So we're transitioning this. You'll see this in the upcoming budget document as well for a little bit better transparency of, we can get into the where it's being spent, but also what and why is being spent in those areas. So that's the end of, not quite at the bottom. So the net surplus deficit position that we're forecasting is a net deficit on the operations of $190,000 at this point. And so administration will be taking steps to make sure that we're getting value for dollar and not pursuing too many new things, but not at the sacrifice of existing service levels. So that's what administration is looking at. If I go to the next page, so this is quarterly, same report, but just for utilities. Utility operations are different. They're self-funded. There's really only two big ticket items. So on the revenue side, sales and user charges has a $1.3 million surplus in revenue. which is offset by the $980,000 excess spend in materials and supplies. And that's basically to do with the purchase of the water and wastewater services that we get. We purchase the water, and then we have to pay for it or we get money from the residents for the water. They pay where the flow through. And so it's the additional usage of water this year that has driven both of those pieces. There is a little bit of a savings in contracted general services. And overall, utilities is $540,000, if you scroll down just a little bit, in a surplus position, which is always a preferable place to be. If we go to the next page, this is the capital report. It's quite a long list. Basically, so the upper section, municipal renewal, you'll see if we just go to I'm not going to go through each project, but if you go to the gray lines, you'll see the total municipal renewal. We are forecasting to be under budget on the renewal by $300,000, roughly, which is 4%, which is a appropriate margin that we try to budget at. We try to budget to have enough money, but not too much money. Right, so this is good practice that's indicating that we're on schedule. You'll notice, I'll point out the Innovation Park ASP. Currently, it shows $57,000 projected over budget. That's not actually correct. There's a coding error, so that will come down some. There are a handful, so if you look down at the transportation growth, which is just above the gray line there, you'll notice it's $9,000 projected over budget, but they've only spent $20,000 of a $140,000 budget. So we're assuming we'll make some savings recoveries, or that's what we'll strive to get there. And in the instance of that we're unable, then we will come back to council and seek additional funding if required. So get down to the bottom line. Overall, we're projecting $267,000 net savings on the capital plan, which is 1.2%. The final page, so the reserves, not to steal my own thunder for the next item on the agenda, so I'm not going to go through this in too much detail, but I will highlight a few things. So you notice that the opening balance of the financial stabilization reserve is $1, which reflects the end-of-year deficit position that we needed to pay out and get things sorted. We do have transfers to and from coming in, and the reserve is starting to recover a little bit. Not going to get into the detail of the capital reserves, so just talk about the bottom line. So $7.5 million is opening balance, 6.6 will be our closing balance projected. Again, some of those savings from not having to fully expend capital will positively impact this number, but just to highlight that we are planning, and this is the plan, to spend more than we were putting in. So reserves are on a little bit of a downward trajectory. Utility reserve, same situation. It's largely funding a major capital project. But their rate model builds in reserve contributions and growth, so that one's less troublesome. So that is the keep you awake version of the Q2 quarterly report, and I'd be happy to take any questions.
Making it sound more sense every time you present it to us. Much appreciated. We have questions from Councillor Monkoff-Swain, followed by Councilman Newkirk. Sam, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thanks for running through this. Do you mind scrolling up to the first page of this attachment here, and scroll down a little bit under expenses? Sorry, yeah, right here is perfect. So maybe before I get into this question, I think probably underrated or less known on how tough it is to come within the margins that you guys are. Obviously a little bit early, but particularly on the capital side, to be around that 1%. I know you guys strive for that, and I think the committed administration is to coming in on budget and meeting that. So it's not lost on me. And so thanks to you and your team, and I just hope that the public can see something like this. I did have a very specific question, which I did not have an answer to. I won't mention the individual's name, but someone asked me a question about this on page 168 of a 261-page report. They had a question about what bad debt is. And I didn't have an answer for that. And so because they managed to get to this page, I figured I'd just, out of respect, get to that. So good on them. please help me. Explain bad debt and under the expenses there.
So what bad debt is people may owe us money. So let's say there's a vendor that we supplied a thing for, and they owe us money for that. And we just cannot collect it. And after a certain point, 120 days, 180 days, we send it to collections, and if they can't get it, we write it off. Like, we can't just keep it on the books as owing forever. So it's a common accounting term. It's to write off money that you will never, ever recover because of they went bankrupt or they just can't be found or whatever the reason is. So it's usually a very small number, but there is an accounting line item to manage that.
Yeah, okay, thanks. And I won't get into an accounting lesson in front of everyone, but thank you for that. And I'll be able to report back. So thanks, appreciate it.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Van Newkirk, Stephen, you have the floor.
Yeah, thank you. I just had a comment and a question on the capital budget side. Now, it says it is expected that 66.4% of the capital budget will be spent by year end and at completion, and then a bunch of numbers. It says it's common and expected that capital projects can take longer than a calendar year. Just wondering if you could elaborate on that, because I do know when I was first elected, you always strive to approve a budget and get it done, and then next year, feel on that has kind of changed a little bit to go year over year, combine phases and such, and that doesn't come out in here, and I know it's not meant to, but for those who might see that the capital budget is only going to be 66.4% spent. Can you explain how that isn't underperformance?
That is a great question. Thank you, and I appreciate you for giving me an opportunity to speak to it. So, we are in the midst of changing our capital budgeting process, actually. So you'll be familiar with the idea of carry forwards that we've done every year, and so it's extremely challenging to predict. We would put, let's say, I'm just going to make up a project. Let's say there's a $1 million project. We're not sure exactly how long it takes to build, but we say, well, we'll guess it's $1 million, and we'll start in year one, and then we spend, usually it's a very small amount in year one, like 20%. So then we have to, by budget time, we have to guess how much we think we're going to spend by the end of the year, and then we have to make a new project in year two for the $800,000 that's left, right? And so normal construction for major capital would be roads, buildings, things like that, is multi-year nature. Even acquiring heavy equipment, buses, tractors, things like that, can take 18 months, right? And so what we're moving toward is a full authority budget approval, and so then it will take time. Like a normal to build a building or a road is 2-3 years, right? And so for it to be 66% spent is actually a really good number in a calendar year, and so we will project. We have approval for $25 million. I'm just making stuff up here.
Yep.
And if we spend 15 of it in the calendar year and 60% of what that we're doing, then that's a really good metric. If we're only spending 10%, because you have to understand that there's time flowed, right? That some things are farther along, and so not everything is going to be the 20%. But it's a good metric that we are cognizant that it does take an extended period of time to deliver some capital projects, and then it really helps us from the audit perspective of, in the upcoming budget, we'll say how much of that $25 million that we have planned to spend this year, and that's an even better metric. So we would know we anticipated to spend only $15 million and we spent 14.5, then we know we're right on as far as execution and performance. So that's a really good question. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. That's it.
Thank you, Councillor. I have a question, if you don't mind, Jay, if you don't mind. Going back to the very first page that Sam was on previously, just a very quick question, if I could. Some clarification on the, contracted and general services under expenses, a deficit of 1.1 million roughly, not for 9%, reasonable sized number. You may have mentioned earlier, if I'm out of the room, I apologize, but Reader's Digest version of what that 1.1 million overspend is?
So that's an underspend at that. So this is
Oh, right,
money.
sorry, I think of the wrong thing. Forget my question. I appreciate it. It's not underspend. I went the wrong direction on that one. Sorry. Any other further questions? Oh, Councillor Penrod, you have the floor.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Daniluk. Hopefully this is a quick question. How do we over-collect requisitions?
That's a very good question through the councillor to Councillor Penrod, or through the mayor. I'm missing all my formal today. When we're budgeting, we don't know what the province is actually going to requisition. So this is comparing what the budget was. So we take an estimate of what we think the provincial requisition is going to be, Leduc housing, all those things, and we put a number in there. And then we get numbers in the spring from the province saying this is how much you're going to requisition. And so it's just a variance compared to what we had anticipated compared to what they told us at the end.
Thank you. So it looks like this number is mostly associated to the education levy, correct? And so in our process, we've received generally some kind of communication from the province of what we might anticipate, but then that gets squared up in the spring because they're on a different cycle than us?
Through the
Or it gets
Councillor.
finalized in the spring is maybe a better way to say it.
We project based on history. Lots of times the province doesn't even tip their hand as far as what they think it might be. We just have to go on trending, a little bit of history, and make our best guess.
Okay, thank you. And then second question is, with respect to the water, I'm just curious what that story is telling. We're using more water. Is this related to our growth, or is that more growth than anticipated, more people, or are we somehow using more water per capita?
Through the mayor to the councillor. So a little bit of both is my understanding. So we remember that we did have a very hot and dry and fire-ridden early part of the year. Lots of lawn watering, water usage, and coupled with growth as well. So we usually take a good budgeting principles. You take a conservative revenue projection. You don't want to overextend and think that you're going to make more than you do. So it's good practice to be on the low end of your revenue projection so that you make your targets, and then everything after that is good news.
Thank you. But this isn't a case like Calgary a summer ago where there's a big, massive leak in the system somewhere, or as far as we're aware?
No, not that I'm aware. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good, no leak. Excellent. Any further questions for Mr. Paycheck? Seeing none, would you please put the motion on to accept the report for information? Councilor Tellenbus, would you make that motion, please, when it's on the screen?
The August 26, 2026, quarterly 25. Quarterly financial report, Q2 2025, be received as information.
That just throws you off, doesn't it, when you look at this right here? Perfect. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, please initiate the voting process for the motion to accept for information. That carries unanimously again, 5-0. Oh, hang on, my screen from, okay, let's try that again, shall we? Yes, it does show again unanimously 5-0 in favor of the motion. Thank you, council. Thank you, Jay. On our next item then, we still have you up here. You are on item 8.4, policy C58, financial reserves policy. We'll do this section and then we'll let Jay head out for the night, and we'll have a short break and we'll continue on with our agenda. So Jay, you have the floor.
I do, but I believe I need the flicker or the clicker.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
If I could get the presentation put on the screen, please.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, good, this works. So here today to speak to a new policy, or I originally had it as a policy update, but I made so many changes that they said it has to be new. So we're going to speak to a little bit about it. So policy purpose is around providing standards for proper administration and management, ensures reserves provide fiscal stability and sustainability, supports viable and growing community, and outlines the responsibilities of efficient and effective management as well as council oversight. I'm not going to read all this to you, but I will highlight the three bullets in the middle. So the policy plays a crucial role in establishing and maintaining and managing funds that maintain and improve Beaumont's working capital requirements, provide for future funding requirements, and provide stabilization for fluctuations in operating and capital activities. And this is a best practice that is going around right now. You do have both copies of both the new policy and the old policy. There are modest changes, wording and structure is largely the same, a few additions. I do get into some changes around reserve composition, descriptions and oversight, and we introduce authorized ranges in this policy. Wording and structure, so some minor tweaks to purpose and policy, adding a few definitions. The guidelines speak to the authorized ranges, and I'll talk about the authorized range schedule. Okay, so here goes. This is one of the heavy slides. So, in the spirit of in the last presentation, I talked about not the where, but the why. Our reserve structure as it existed at this point was location specific, and it was department centric, right? Transportation and planning and fire, and so I'm making we're making a structure change to be the why is the reserve there, rather than the who owns it or where is it being spent. So there's some significant structure changes. So on the next page, you'll see the outcomes. But basically, I'm collapsing 10 reserves into 7 on the municipal side. So, and that means that I've collapsed 8 reserves into 3 and adding a couple of new ones. And on the reserves utility side, there was only 1 reserve previously. I'm splitting those out into 4. And as I said, so we've added roll-up categories. So it's a transition from where the money is spent to why. And then the other major changes, we're seeking council's approval, endorsement of empowering administration to make some minor rebalancing structural changes. So for example, as you notice that the opening balance of the financial stabilization reserve is $1, we could move some money, administration would be powered through the CFO's authority to move some of the money from a different reserve into that, so it actually has some money to deal with future opportunities. And it's based on some authorized ranges where you're allowed to transfer money in and out, but it allows administration to restructure the reserves to reflect the needs that we've done without always coming back with red tape. Council, we need to move this around. Council, we need to move around. And then we would come back at the end of the year, part of the financial statements, the Q4 report, and we would fully transparently speak to all the changes that we have made. We limit the changes to 10% of the reserve portfolio, so we're not moving huge swings of cash between reserves. It wouldn't be used very often, but it does provide administration with some flexibility to respond to council's needs without always having to come back and do every transaction that is the current policy reflects. And so our responsibility would be redesignation and reporting, and it's to manage the funding sources and for financial housekeeping work. So here's what the new reserve structure is going to look like. So we have the current description in the middle column. This is all the municipal reserves. We'll get to the utility ones in a minute. So we're going to collapse the financial stabilization and the planning reserves into a single municipal operations, stabilization, and contingency. You notice the little asterisks there. There's 4 reserves that have this. These are the reserves that will allow, within specific ranges, to movement around. There's other reserves that we're not allowed to touch and move around for legislative reasons, other things, but we'll get into that. And so then we're going to create a municipal capital reserve, and currently the cemetery reserve and the traffic safety reserve would be the funds collapsing into that, and it's to fund basically any non-renewal capital. Okay, that's the idea. So the first one is operations and stabilization. So we have deficits, we have an operating project we need to do, planning study, something like that will come out of the first reserve. Now we need to purchase a new truck or a new pickleball court or whatever the thing is that we're going. This is the reserve that funds the new piece. And then we have a municipal infrastructure life cycle, which collapses all of the other all the other replacement reserves, so vehicle, technology, building, and transportation. And what this does is it maximizes our ability to adjust to pressures. So we have if we're going to let's say a major road rehab needs to be done, but we've just done a bunch of road rehabs and it's empty, but the building one is quite full. We'd have to come and ask council's permission to be like, can we move this money around and do this? To actually be able to empower administration to have, this is the dedicated funding, it's tax supported to renew. Historically, it's about maintaining what we have. And so it is one reserve and we manage all of that infrastructure through that one reserve. Economic development reserve would be collapsing into the new general land reserve. And so this is land that is for strategic purposes. You know, we might be looking 10, 20 years down the road. That's economic development's purview. It might make sense to buy some land in advance, knowing that we're going to be there in a decade or more. But we know that when we are ready to buy there, the land prices will be much higher than they are now. And so there might be times when we want to actually tactically and strategically buy land in advance. So this is a reserve dedicated to that. And we may want to sell land at some point. And so this is the land flow through of sometimes we want to sell. It's a good, we're not going to do this investment anymore. We're going to recover the cash. And so that's the general land reserve. And then we have, so those are the four that were the movable. And then we get into the special purpose reserves that are not. So there's other municipal land, so that's usually through development, right? So that they have municipal land reserve, that a portion of a bought area is set aside for municipal purposes, be it schools or parks, open spaces, things like that. And these are lands or money for lands, because sometimes we'll get money in lieu of land, that is not movable. It's specifically MGA legislated, and it's set aside for that specific purpose. There may be times as we go forward, we just had the developer levy bylaw go through, right? So we have new levy rates. Part of our obligation when we're building new stuff is sometimes, depending on the need and the pressure, administration may need to finance some of that development. So we have a major, let's say this 510, they're going to do 510 from both ends, and there's not enough developer money currently yet to do that. And so we might have to put aside or debt finance that money. We set up then a levy repayment reserve, and all the development money that comes in at that point first funnels into that reserve, and that's paying the debt off, right? And so there's calculations and stuff like that. So it's a specific reserve just for if we ever have to finance development growth. And I try not to as much as possible because it does impact our levy, our debt capacity, but sometimes it will be required. And so having a debt reserve set aside is good business. And then we're also getting into the clean energy improvement program that we're working with the FCM on. And so this is, again, another specific funding reserve just for that, and is non-touchable as far as flexibility and pieces from there. We move on to utilities. It is basically a mini version of the municipal side minus all of the special reserves, right? So rather than just one reserve that's operating in capital, we'll have, again, an operations stability and contingency. We'll have new utilities, we'll have life cycle utilities, and levy debt repayment if there is levy growth that requires, or utility levy growth that requires financing by administration. So then we get into authorized ranges. We did have some optimal floors and ceilings on a few reserves in our past policy, so it's not like I'm completely inventing a new wheel, but I took it a little bit farther. Again, it does allow for flexibility in our environment. It's future focused, and it does reflect and move us towards multi-year planning, which is one of the big pushes that we're moving forward in the next couple of years. And it does enable, that's the tool that enables periodic rebalancing. So then just an example of how the redesignation would work between the areas. So I'm not going to get into the difference of uncommitted balance and committed balance, but we'll just say that so that Reserve A has $5 million in it, and through the formula that is in the guideline itself, because each reserve has a specific use and funding source, and a formula for the authorized range. It is $2 million below what its floor should be. Its authorized range between 7 and 13. But Reserve B has $12 million, and it's between 8 and 15. So it's comfortable. It's not at the high end of the range, but Reserve A requires a little top up to get it back into to where it should be. So $2 million under the floor, so we move redesignation from B to A, so $2 million, B goes down $2 million, A comes up $2 million, the new balances are $7 million and $10 million, and both are now within their range. And again, on example number 2 is if, not necessarily that A was short, A is still in the range, 7 was the uncommitted balance and it's in the range, but we see that Reserve B is actually over the ceiling, right? So their maximum was 15, they're 3 over, let's move that $3 million into one of the other reserves, so we're, again, balancing and rebalancing the reserves wherever it makes sense in order to be as flexible as we need to be. And with that, I'd be happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Ms. Bohachek. Appreciate the presentation. Very thorough, and it's counsel for our presenter. Councillor Penrod, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, first of all, for the report, and you have a delightful way of explaining these things, and I always appreciate people who are so passionate about a subject that their passion kind of like rubs off on folks around, so I'm happy to have you on our team. How will residents benefit from increasing CFO's authority to rebalance reserve funds? So tell me some of the story about why we need this flexibility. Can you give us an example where the need at present to come to council for an ask like that? And I don't recall more than a handful of those over, and my experience is only 2 years, so it's not a lot, but yeah, Councillor Van Newkirk likes to ask sometimes, what problem are we trying to solve here? So I could use a little more color on why we need this.
So this is this is a first step as far as we're looking to update a number of policies in the next year. So if you'll, a number of the finance policies are a couple decades old, so it'll be the first step. And so they're going to go hand in hand. We're trying to optimize flexibility and eliminate the red tape piece with coming to council. So if we need to do an action, say that in the future, as we go forward, the idea would be to empower administration to make small changes. So for example, that $9,000, for example, that we're projecting to be over budget on one of the capital projects. If that actually comes to fruition, we, administration, should be able to small dollar make adjustments and do pieces like that. So if that means moving dollars, it's capital dollars, to operating to fund $9,000 shortfall, and then we report back, but it's within administration authority to do some of those changes. So it eliminates red tape, both from the reserve management piece all the time, but also as a first step of getting administration to be more empowered but efficient, right? So we make those small adjustments, we fully transparent, we come back and present it all to council, but we don't have to be here for a $9,000 budget amendment, right? And so these two pieces go hand in hand that allow administration to balance pressures as we're looking at funding the capital plan, for example, with in this upcoming budget, right? The demands that we might have in the capital plan may not easily reflect where the balances are currently in the structure, right? So we have a huge shortfall that, we have to do this major rehabilitation project, and that's actually going to use up most of the rehabilitation reserve, the life cycle reserve, and we need to move some money from the capital reserve just to prop it up, balance it out, right? So it's about, again, making it more flexible, more dynamic, and we don't, again, not to use it all the time. It's just to provide some opportunity for administration to avoid some red tape and become more efficient and balance pressures.
Yeah. So part of what I'm reacting to and questioning on is I don't love the term red tape at any time, but another name for red tape is checks and balances, right? And so there's a reason why we have these procedures, and I think from my perspective sitting here, that power of the purse, if we could say it that way, is one of the few ways, relatively few ways, that council really has to hold administration to account. And so I'm a little bit loath to give it up. So I'll just shift gears a little bit and ask about the rebalancing piece. So I think, again, you explained it very well with the example of Fund A and Fund B, and sometimes it's just helpful if we could true these up a little bit. But it sort of begs the question then, I think the proposal is that we're going to 7 funds from 10 overall, adding a couple new ones, collapsing a few, if I'm remembering correctly.
Yeah, so this slide, yeah?
Yeah, so if we're moving to just being able to rebalance all the time, why don't we just have one big pot?
So in theory, you could do that, but then it gets very complicated, right? So part of the idea of optimizing the structure of the reserve is to, so identified by need, right? So we present our capital budget by growth and renewal, right? So I should know what my renewal plan is and what my funding strategy is to get me there, and so on and so forth. When you add layers of, now the growth is all in the same bucket, so now I'm tracking 3 different streams and I have operations in the same bucket, that's just too much. Now, we want to enable administration to make council's vision come true as far as our service delivery and the capital pieces. So having money just sit in transportation when there's a real need in buildings, but it's still for renewal. So it's about the why piece in order to make it so that we are not in a position where we can't do this just because it's labeled this. And again, it's that, and I don't want to, red tape is an unfair word, but there is administrative lead time, right? We can't act right on the spot. We're like, oh, we have to get onto the council agenda. We have to write a report. It has to be, right? So we're weeks and weeks, and maybe there's an opportunity through a procurement or something that we're losing out on a chance if we're tied up like that. You know, it's even getting to market before the other guy. Right, so it's about empowering administration within constraints, and I fully understand the reluctance to that final oversight piece, but it's about reporting back. So, for example, you guys approve of the budget, and in great detail, but then we're spending it, and we report back to it at the end of how did we do, and some items are over and some items are under, and that's within administration purview to make those things happen, because we bottom line manage to get, we set a budget as best we can to deliver the services, and sometimes it's not exactly right, and we have to spend a little bit more in some areas, and we underspend in others to balance to get there. Same principle, right? So it's about empowering the reserves to meet that capital future. As we come forward, I said, they'll be updating expenditure policies on when we're authorized to do things, but with full oversight. We report back 100% transparency. There's controlled limits. You guys would set the limits on what you're comfortable with empowering administration to do. You know, we're not talking like administration can just spend millions of dollars, right? Mm-hmm. It's small ball, but those housekeeping things, like, oh, one of the quotes came back on a $190,000 project and it came in at $195,000. We have to go through all of this to get $5,000 doesn't seem very useful time. And we talked about why is this coming to us when administration should have just dealt with it. And so we're trying to set ourselves up to deal with some of those small things, let you guys talk about the big things, and then we come back full transparency and report it all, right? And if you don't like what you've seen, then we can have conversations about that. But it's about oversight and empowerment. So they go hand in hand, and it's not about usurping power from council. It's about delivering what you guys want us to do, and sometimes you can make it easier for us to get you what you want.
Thank you for that answer. I think you framed it and closed it there in a really helpful way. Ultimately, it's council that sets a vision, and we task administration to realize that vision. And so the ask here sounds like with this relatively controlled 10% piece to rebalance and report on what we're doing along the way, we'll be a little freer to actually execute on the vision that we've been tasked to execute.
And just to remind that, so this doesn't give us authority to spend 10%. We're just moving money that exists within control just to balance out reserves and pressures. That's it.
Yep. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you. I have Councillor Van Nuker, followed by Councillor McGrath-Swain. Steve?
Yeah, thank you. Just a little bit of a detailed question around the SEEP reserve. Description M7, I guess it'll turn into. Can you just explain that one a little bit, because it's brand new and it's in response to a program that's new to Beaumont, and only new to Beaumont because our financial system can now handle it, I think. And it couldn't before, but maybe if you could just speak to that and how we got here and what it is and what it's for.
Through the mayor to the councillor. Thanks for the question. It is new, and technically our system doesn't support it this time, but we are moving to a system that will do that. So part of it is getting a reserve ready, and so I'm generally good at making complicated not complicated. This is not a topic that I can undo that really well. The financing is very complicated. There's operating capital. There's multiple governing bodies involved. 3 to be exact, plus residents, so cash flows and money coming in and operating, so it's just a reserve set aside to manage those funds, that if we're getting money from the third party, it goes into here, we're paying developers, or not developers, paying construction to install, and it's really about clean energy improvement, so it's like, blanking, the solar panels, things like that. It's about
Windows. Yeah.
Windows, yeah. So residents are able to apply to the program, do upgrades to their house. It goes on their tax roll, but then we have to pay for some of it up front. And so it's very complex. And so this is just a reserve just to handle that activity, so it's doesn't get tangled up in all of our other funds. It's easier for reporting and auditing.
Yeah, and I think that's the key message, is it's a home for all the ins and outs that doesn't get tangled up in everything else, right? So, and just to be clear, what I referred to earlier is our financial system isn't set up to handle the complexities of the program as it sets right now, but council has approved budget that administration is working on getting there. So it's just, this is one of those ones that really has jumped out at me as like brand new and not maybe as intuitive as the other. Second question, I just need to scroll back up here. When it comes to the oversight and that 10%, I'm not sure I saw that 10% of reserve portfolio threshold reflected in the policy. If I'm incorrect, where in the policy does it reflect that, or is it?
Page 3.
Page 3.
Two last line in the paragraph.
Okay, got it. Perfect, thank you. I didn't catch that one. So that's it for me, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Councilman McGough-Swain, Sam, you have the floor.
Yeah, thanks. I was going to pick up on where Councillor Penrod was coming from, because I think when most people look at this or hear about this, I think Councillor Penrod's speaking to just the general mistrust, right? And that usually comes from a lack of information. And I think the last sentence you said in one of your answers earlier was really important, that you're not spending additional 10%, right? You're just transferring it, right? And so I just want to double down on that, because when I first looked at that and spoke to a few people about it, that was an initial concern. It felt like administration was, and that's not the case. And I will speak to past times in council over the last 8 years where it's been a very mundane administration effort to come back to council, and then, I don't know if it saved any procurement dollars. That's a nice example that administration likes to give. Good try. But I think what I've seen is it come back on I don't know how long it's taken to get there, and yes, we go through it and move it. And so I appreciate where the questions are coming from, because that's where the public is generally at. What I would speak to, though, is on you talk about the annual reporting. And as much as we love your fancy spreadsheets there, the 4-page with a whole bunch of numbers, you'll find that sometimes it's pretty challenging to dive into that. And so I think, moving forward, especially in the first year or two after that, is just being very clear on like a written summary on these are some of the cases where we have done it, and that is why. And I think eventually through time that they'll just cease a need for those sort of things. But I think just being clear, as opposed to putting it in not that you're burying it, but in a like a 15-page financial statement, and we're not going to necessarily pick up on that exact net, right? So I think for something like this, it is tough for council to kind of work through something like that. So I just encourage administration, if this moves forward, that just being a bit clear around where you've done that, and when you come back and report back to us. So I'm very supportive of this. It speaks to the continued or the improving professionalism that you and your team are bringing to this part of our administrative shop here. I just think that the questions from Councillor Penrod, I think might have seemed to be relatively negative, right? But it's just coming from, this is where the community is at. So I think this is all a good step forward, and I just encourage just really proactive reporting on that just once, and then council will get comfortable with it, and then you probably won't need it moving forward. So yeah.
Thank you. The procurement example maybe was a stretch, but I can definitely speak to the amount of time that I write reports is time lost that I could be working on other financial elements, right, with some small changes to not have to, or other directors on changes. So there is some actual gain by giving this power.
Good. Thanks. So a quick question for myself, Jay. Sometimes I often ask the question, I understand the process you're looking at. I agree with it in principle. Is there any reason why we wouldn't do this? Is there any reason why we shouldn't do this? I'm thinking through it, and your explanation all makes sense. Consolidation, streamlining, all makes sense to me. But is there any reason why we shouldn't do this? And from your perspective, with your experience?
So this will be the second time I've done this. I did this at my previous organization before I left, so it's the second time I've done this in 2 years. I see this as, we've talked about it with many financial experts. This, I think, is leading edge of best practice. The old structure, so accountants love accounting, and everything has a column and a row and a column and a row, and everything has to be broken out. And so it's very meticulous and very, right? I came from a place that we had like 75 reserves and tracking all of the things, and what does that come up to? And massive amounts of work to track spreadsheets and all sorts of things that is not necessary. Honestly, you know, we have reserves set up for specific purposes. And then as long as you're looking at your holistic capital plan and how it fits into the reserve structure, I don't personally see risk. Now, like, I'm also not clearly you see, I'm not a traditional accountant in the way that I like to talk and present myself. I don't have the green visor and things like that. So a purist might have wished that, you know, you just need, everything has its own bucket and bucket and bucket and bucket. But I don't think that that's the best way to do business. And so I personally, again, I've done this twice, or I'm trying to do this twice. It was successful the first time. I think that this is where organizations should be going as far as that goes.
Thanks, Jake. That's the answer I was anticipating. Just to get an idea, my student resume, we shouldn't do this. So any further questions on the report before I go to the two motions that are part of the report itself? Oh, Councilor Tellenbus, sorry. Nathan, you have the floor.
Perfect, thank you. I will actually be putting forward a motion just in regards to this, but I do just want to speak to some of the conversation that was had, primarily around the council oversight and putting in the addition where basically the 10% of reserve portfolio can be rebalanced or transferred. I do appreciate what you've put together in terms of the categories. And as you mentioned, we don't have 20 different lanes or 70 or whatever the case is. We're reducing it significantly, which I do feel provides a lot more flexibility than what we had originally. So I feel like we're gaining that in terms of being able to utilize the funds potentially at different projects or in different areas. So by having that flexibility, I don't think it's necessarily a requirement to be able to give up that 10% threshold without going to council and asking for that change. Ideally, we also kind of want to know where reserves are going. And again, by broadening the categories, it gives you guys a little more reach in where you can spend it, but it also gives us the idea as to where it's going to be spent. By giving up the requirement for council to vote on that, I feel like we could lose track of, again, up to that 10%. And at the end of the year, yes, it'll be presented to us, but it might be a bit of a shock depending on what it was used for. So in saying that, I think ideally we would want to try and just have healthy enough reserves where we're not worried about $5,000. And that's where we need to get to. So yeah, just a little insight into what I'm wanting to do is just basically remove that redesignation of uncommitted balances up to the 10%. But aside from that, I appreciate the presentation. I appreciate you explaining it. And I think the structure will be beneficial to administration.
Okay, thank you, councilors. Having said that, you have a motion you want to present. So we should probably deal with that first, Madam Clerk, and see how that motion is presented, what it is, and we'll debate it, and then we'll go forward. So, councilor, if you have a motion prepared, when it's on the screen, please make it, and I'll ask you to speak to it after you've made your motion.
Perfect. So I would like to move that Council Policy C58, Financial Reserves Policy as set out in Attachment 1 of the August 26, 2025 report be amended to remove the following wording: redesignation of uncommitted balances up to 10% of the entity's municipal or utility total reserve portfolio to accommodate council-approved committed balances and to adhere to authorized ranges as approved by the CFO. Reserves eligible for redesignation are outlined in Schedule A.
Councillor, please speak to your motion.
Perfect, thanks, Mayor. I briefly spoke to it. I don't have too much more to add. I do feel like this is an extra line item that doesn't need to be there. I think that there needs to be a little bit of council oversight. I understand the terms used in terms of transferring amongst the groups and rebalancing. I get the theory, but if in layman's terms, if we're budgeting to spend it on shoes, we should spend it on shoes. I don't want us transferring it to things that we don't need to be transferring because, again, we have expectations as to where it's going to be spent. But I think the biggest thing is let's get some healthy reserves. So,
Thank you, Councillor. Appreciate that. So open up to council members for questions and debate on this motion. I'll be starting with Councillor Penrod, followed by Councillor Monkoff-Swain. Phil, you have the floor.
Thanks, Councillor Natellas, for bringing this forward. I think you captured here some of what I was feeling. And again, that's not just a personal feeling, but as Councillor Monkoff-Swain said, this is me reflecting on the sentiment as I perceive it in the wider community. I'm here, I've had a lot of access to information. It also occurs to me that, you know, we just had an example from earlier tonight where we were actually able to accelerate a process tonight because we had a really extended process that preceded it. We heard several updates on the work on the offsite levy program along the way, and we could ask our questions and wrap our minds around it. This piece is coming, as far as I can recollect, this is the first we're seeing on it. We haven't had a chance to test it at like committee of the whole or anything like that. So overall, I'm supportive of the direction that you want to take us in here. That one piece does feel like a little too much to me. And I also note in the proposed policy, it's up for review again in 2-3 years. And that's built in. So I would say I'm in support of this motion as Councillor Natellas has brought it forward. And I would look to administration if the need's there for this additional change, we're scheduled to review, make the case, like point it out to us where and when it could be helpful to have that piece. I haven't seen it yet, I'm not there yet, but I'm not totally close to the idea. I think this is a better place for us to start from on a new policy.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Monkoff-Swain, Sam, you have the floor.
Thanks for the motion. Yeah, I don't support this for a couple of reasons. First, you know, we talked about the time put in to come back. We talked about that this isn't about spending. Council still maintains that full authority. I think it's worth noting that 10% is a pretty low number when you look at the balances here. Like if that number was up to, you know, 40, 50%, then I would have a lot of concern. I'm sure administration didn't just land on that number lightly. I think 10% is pretty small compared to what they could have asked for. But for me, within 10%, to allow administration to move that around, the fact that there is full transparent reporting on the end of it, I think to your point about public trust, I also think the public asks us to be efficient and work through items that really are in front of council and are important, and shifting a balance up to 10%. I don't think A is worth Jay or any of his team's time to work through that. You know, they are employed for a reason. I also think you know, to have council's agenda, you know, these items in the past have taken a bit of time to go through, and eventually we get there. But you know, I think the public wants us to focus on some of the high priority items, and these things can clog up agendas unnecessarily. So to me, because it's a small number, because there is full disclosure, full reporting on it, And the fact that they're not spending any money, they're just transferring already approved money. I don't support this and want to make sure we're more efficient with our time. So I'll leave it there, and we'll see where the votes lie. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Newkirk. Stephen, you have the floor on this one.
Yeah, thank you. Just to elaborate on something Councillor Monkoff-Swain said, can we talk just in real dollars for a second? What does 10% reflect right now, just so that that number's out there? I know it's calculation on the fly, but like it's important to the discussion, so.
Oh, I'm sorry, Jay, your microphone, my apologies.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So to you, Councillor Newkirk, as I look at the Q4 statements and have the financial reserves, so the total capital transferable ability, so would be $750,000 on a 7.5 million, and the utilities reserve would be $860,000. So altogether, we're looking at $1.6 million total flexibility on $16 million.
Okay, so now we have the numbers in front of us. So one of the things that, or maybe I'll start with the second question. So right now, tonight, we have a quarterly financial update in front of us. Moving forward, how do you envision those updates coming to us? Or is it going to be a same format like this with the finances and the reserves attached? And where I'm going with this is, if you made a transfer, is there not an opportunity at the quarterly financial statements to hear about it? So council would actually hear about it across the year? Because you're already doing that reporting and that numbers anyways, and that wouldn't be generating a new report. That isn't more, 15 pages of report and time, right? So maybe a modification to our current process is actually in order rather than striking this out.
To the mayor, to the councillor, that's a great idea. It could be an extra column in that report that says administration transfers and we could speak to, it can be literally highlighted and we could talk to it. That would be something that we could totally do.
Yeah, so so if we made that little change, then council's going to have 5 times a year to press a button and discuss that, right? Like quarterly updates and budget, right? So
and year end, right? So
year end. There you go. So that's 6 times we would have to do it. So for me, I wouldn't be supportive of this. I would rather this stays with increased visibility throughout the year on any of the changes that were made, because like the other piece of this is we have to talk about optics versus reality. The optics is administration has free rein to move 10% of money around. Yeah, that's actually the truth. But what I've actually experienced is, even to the point where it's frustrated me, is that administration has been very reluctant to move money around of reserves. It's like, hey, we got a lot in that pot over here. Let's just do this and we'll make this all better and do that. And I think, council's been shot down, rightfully so, through a couple of budgets on that, right? So that's, that's the whole optics versus reality thing. So for me, what I would rather do is I would rather make I don't know, maybe Ledge, would we need to make so I won't support this, what's in front of us now, but what I would like to do is I'd like to formalize the inclusion of reserve updates into quarterly financials moving forward. Like, help me legislatively hop across the pond with this one.
Jay, do you require any kind of a motion to do that, or you can accept that directive as it is?
I can accept it, but this is policy that will last years or potentially be based for years. Obviously, it's going to be updated, so I would not object to it being formalized into the policy itself.
Okay, it may require a separate motion then, Steve.
It might, and so this motion's on the floor now, so.
We'll deal with this one
We'll deal
first.
with this, and then I think I'll put a motion forward to increase the visibility of reserve reporting across the year, because I think that's actually more important.
Yeah, I
Thank you.
concur with that perspective, so thank you, councillors. I agree with the previous 2 comments from Steve and Sam on my biggest point is that it's only 10%. It's not like 30 or 40 that's going to be moved around. It's already money, it's already in there, so I'm fine with the policy the way it is. So any last, is your motion, Nathan? You're welcome to make a last comment before I go to the vote. If you'd like to make any comments, you're welcome to.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, obviously, this is still the stance that I'm taking. I don't think 1.6 million or just shy of it is a little bit of money. It's quite a bit of money. And to be able to just throw that into different reserves as we please without council approval, I don't think is appropriate. And as we continue to try and grow these reserves, that number is going to get bigger and bigger and bigger, at least I hope. So in saying that, that 1.6 becomes 2 million, 3 million, 4 million. So right now we're at 1.6 million of money we can play around with. Again, I understand that the capital is already there, but it's designated for a certain purpose. And to be able to just move it around, I don't feel is appropriate without having that conversation. So yes, I'm going to be going this way. Should this not pass, obviously I will support Councillor Van Nieuwkerk's motion, but hoping this passes. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I think Councillor Newkirk's motion coming up would be very, very welcoming. So with that, would you please, I'll call for the vote. Would you please initiate the voting process on this motion? So I got 3. Sam, you got a yes there? Hang on a second.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm just thinking, so I have 3. Sorry, my screen's looking weird to me here.
Sorry, I voted the wrong way. I think it's the fault. Too late, sorry.
Yeah, yeah, so I've got 3 yes and 2 no. 3 yeses are,
I don't know if it's a point of order or seek clarification from legislative. Sorry.
because you said you're going to vote no and you voted.
Exactly.
So
Madam Clerk, this is the first time in a long time this has happened, so refresh my memory on procedure here. What are the options?
if this is a misvote, you can recall the question
Okay,
to vote on it.
so it's my discretion to call a misvote based on what's happened?
Recall the question, yeah.
Okay, I will call a misvote, and I will recall the question. Would you please reinitiate the voting process on this motion? Okay. Okay, so we're clear. The motion is defeated, 3-2. In opposition, myself, Councilor Malkoff Swain, and Councilor Van Nieuwkerk. Thank you, Councilor Tellman, for bringing this forward. It's a good discussion. So, Councilor Van Nieuwkerk, I believe you mentioned having potential motion as a subsequent to what was talked about a few minutes ago. Would you care to make that motion at this time?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. We're moving quite quickly up here, and I just want to give Ledge some time to catch up. So just cognizant of lots going on, so.
Madam Clerk, would you like a 5-minute break to? Okay. Take your time. Okay, Steve, take your time and read it and make sure it's,
Yeah, I believe that says what I was saying. I would just look to the CFO for, is there enough clarity in that piece there? It's saying that there's provide reporting on the reserves to occur through the year at quarterly reports, budget deliberations, and year-end financial. It seems clear to me, just that's what I had spoke about. So, okay, thank you for the support here. Mayor, I'll move the motion. I'll move that Council Policy C-58, Financial Reserves Policy, as set out in Attachment 1 on the August 26, 2025 report, be amended to provide provide for reporting on the reserves to occur through the year at quarterly reports, that should maybe be quarterly financial reports, budget deliberations, and the year-end financial report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Do you wish to speak to your motion any further than you already?
Just very briefly, I think, I think given where we're at, more visibility on the reserves written into the policy actually provides some pretty good strength for visibility moving forward, given the flexibility of that 10% has remained after the last vote. So I think if there were concerns after that 10% piece didn't move forward, know that there's built into the policy more visibility across the year now than there would have been in the past. So I think that's quite a good step. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor McGough-Swain, followed by Councillor Penrod. Sam, you have the floor.
Yeah, thanks. I'm just seeking maybe a friendly amendment here from Councillor Van Newkirk. I think if you were here tonight, you would understand what that means, but the way that it's drafted, provide reporting on reserves, we do that anyway. I think what you're really looking for here, if you weren't at this meeting, what would that mean? I think what we're trying to say is reporting on the redesignation of any uncommitted balances of, just to add that extra clarity. We report on reserves through this, and so it's just that redesignation of uncommitted balances, or just some language to recognizing it's on the fly here. It's hard to get it right and read at the same
On that point, Sam, you don't mind. CEO Schwartz, you want to jump in on this point?
Yeah, just I'm going to offer some wording as perhaps in the amendment where it says be amended to provide for reporting on the reserves, including, and what was the terminology used, Sam?
Redesignation of uncommitted balances.
Yeah.
Yep, I would accept that. Thank you.
Steve, you accept that? Yes. Thank you. Okay, we have a friendly amendment there.
Thanks.
You're welcome. Any further comments at this point from Sam? No, I'll move on to Councillor Penrod then. Councillor Penrod, you have the floor.
Thanks, Mayor. I'll keep it brief. I'll just reiterate my point. First of all, enthusiastically supporting this motion. Reiterate my point from earlier. Baked into this policy is a scheduled review. So we get a chance to test drive this for a few years and look at now, I mean, in this case, we're actually getting the more reporting. That's exactly the motion that's bringing. So happy to support that. And to my earlier point, if it turns out that we don't like the extra authority to rebalance, then we have the opportunity to move back in the other direction. So thank you.
On your point, Councillor, Council has authority anytime they want to exercise that authority. So it's still considered oversight. Thank you. Any further comments or questions on the amended motion? Seeing none? Steve, any final comments before I call for the vote? It was your motion. Thank you. Would you please initiate the voting process? And the administration mentioned there's a bit of a glitch with the voting as well with the mics tonight, so just make sure you hit the button the way you want, please. It's just been one of those nights. See, my screen just went blank on me. Okay. All right, make sure everybody hits their button. I've only got 3 votes here. 4. And thank you, Phil. Thank you, Council. That carries unanimously, 5-0 in favor. It took 2 screens to make it happen, but I finally got the 5 people showing on my screen. So the motion carries unanimously, 5-0. Thank you, Councillor Van Newkirk and Councillor Tellenbos for getting the process started. And it resulted in a very good discussion and some motions here. So now we're going back to the original report. There are 2 motions from that report we need to deal with. And Madam Clerk, we'll move on to the second motion. Does the first motion need to be changed to say as amended? Please take your time. Thank you. Thank you. Madam Clerk, we should probably deal each motion individually. I will move that Council Policy C-58, Financial Reserves Policy as amended, be approved. You're saying and. Can we do both at the same time? Okay, I'm fine with that. And that council policy C40, financial reserves policy, be repealed. I will not discuss the motion. I have nothing more, no further comments to make. Other members of council have any comments or questions on this motion? Councilor Natelabas, Nathan, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. Just quickly, as mentioned, I support 95% of this policy, but I'm just not comfortable with that addition for the redesignation of funds without checking in with council. So for that reason, I won't be supporting this.
Thank you, Councilor. I appreciate your position. Any further comments or questions on the motion? Seeing none, will you please initiate the voting process? Thank you, Council. That carries you, 4-1 in favor. Councilor Natelabas in opposition. 4-1 in favor of the motion. Thank you, Council. Thank you, Jay, for your presentation and information for us. Oh, my screen just went blank on me again. This is one of those nights. All right, next on our agenda, give me a second to bring it up here. Apologize, Council. Just be a second. All right. Next on our agenda is item 8.6, which is council meeting cancellation September 9th. It's not on consent. Ms. Darje, Madam Clerk, would you care to comment on this?
Just very briefly, we didn't put it on consent. We weren't sure how long this meeting would proceed, so kept the meeting available. We have gotten through all the items. There are only 2 items scheduled for September 16th. And being that this is now council's maintenance period, there's no need for the September 9th meeting, so we're recommending canceling that meeting.
Okay. So we'll do that right now. Let me just pull it up on my screen again. This is getting a little frustrating. Would you please put the motion on the screen? Easy purposes. I'll move that the September 9, 2025 regular council meeting be canceled and that the administration provide the necessary advertising advising the public of such cancellation. Discussion on the motion? I'm seeing none. Please initiate the voting process on the motion. Okay, I still am showing the screen from the previous vote. Okay, it's clear now. Council, please vote. That carries unanimously, 5-0 in favor of the motion. Thank you very much, Council. Next on our agenda is Councillor inquiries, responses, and reports. Are there any Councillor inquiries this evening? Councillor Penrod, you have the floor for Councillor inquiries.
Thanks, Mayor Daniluk. Just give me a second to find it here.
No problem.
So, do we have it on the screen, or I can read it too? Sure. Thank you. Please provide information regarding what, if any, provincial guidelines or regulations are in place with respect to the service level for mowing that the City of Beaumont is required to provide in the ditches along Highway 814 and 625 highways. Please also provide information regarding the factors considered in determining the service levels for mowing in the ditches along RR 241 and RR 243. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Any further Councillor inquiries this evening? Seeing none, we'll move on to the next item on our agenda is, oh, I'm sorry, Steve. My screen didn't show you. I apologize. Steve, you have the floor.
Yeah, no problem. I've got 2 tonight here.
Thank you. When you're ready, Steve.
Yeah, I'm just reviewing quick.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, thank you. 2 councillor inquiries tonight, both are resulting from summer feedback over the break here. The first one is regarding the property at 9 Colonial Way. And It states, please provide information on how the city is ensuring that 9 Colonial Way aligns with applicable bylaws and an update on the status of any proposed development on this site.
Thank you, Councillor. Once that's just off the screen there, thank you. And your second, when you're ready, please.
The second one is around private tent, event tent usage. Please provide information on the legislation, bylaws, rules, and parameters governing the use of event tents on private property in the community and how the city is addressing related safety and liability concerns such as subsurface utilities and property line encroachments. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Are there any further Councillor inquiries this evening? Okay. Seeing none, next on our agenda is item 11.1, CEO update. Ms. Morrison, I believe you're doing it on behalf of CEO Schwartz, who had to head out. So when you're ready, please.
I guess, thank you, Mayor. I would recommend the update is actually a little bit long, and knowing that you need time for the closed session, I would recommend that we just email this out.
Works for me. Any concerns, Council? Seeing none, thank you, Ms. Morrison. That's how we'll proceed on the update. Next is item 12, notice in the motion. Madam Clerk, do you have any notice in the motion this evening?
Yes, Mayor, there is.
Your button on for notice of motion. Please proceed when you're ready.
Move that at the September 16, 2025, I'm struggling with that, regular council meeting, I will move, that by the end of Q2 2026, administration provide an update report that includes the data captured in the July 8, 2025 report service request portal system, together with the following additional KPIs for portal generated service requests: resolution time, first contact resolution, backlog, number of requests reopened, and number of follow-ups after initial contact, with clear definitions provided for all KPIs used in the report.
Thank you, Councillor. Appreciate that. Are there any further notice in the motion, Madam Clerk? I'm not aware of any further ones, just the one that we had. Thank you. All right, that brings us to the end of our agenda for public. We will move into closed session. We're going to take a 5-minute break first, then we'll come back, move into closed session, and continue on with our agenda. So thank you all for being here. Enjoy your evening. We're on a 5-minute break, and we'll come back and move into closed session. See you in 5 minutes. Thank you. We're back live. Just to do a quick motion to go back into closed session. Madam Clerk, please put the closed session motion on the Access Information Act, Section 20. Discussion on the motion. Seeing none, would you please initiate the voting process to move into closed session? Council, that carries unanimously. Thank you. We will move into closed session. Please enjoy your night. Thank you for being here. We're now in closed session. Thank you. Kill the live feed.